The flag that's 3 by 4 with a blue square field is a military boat flag. All vessels in dry dock on planet Earth, like your own personal house, the school building, these are all vessels in dry dock. They should be flying a 3 by 4 boat flag. The flag over here with yellow fringe on it, see if I can. This is a 1 to 1.9. I recognize this is old. This is a very old flag, by the way. When you take the flag and you fold it like this, corner to corner, and then you take it and you put it up here to the corner, it should only have one stripe showing, which does. So this is a 1 to 1.9 flag. By putting a fringe on it, you say that the contract for the United States of America, or the better known as the Constitution, has been captured by the yellow fringe, which is the court flags, maritime law. It says your contract is null and void because they put a phoenix on top. So the wingtips pointed down is a Vatican banking phoenix. Wingtips up is a your postal eagle. I call it the postal chicken. The acorn, as you see, the acorn is for military parades. It's a military symbol, ACC, meaning no contract. The spear is for military court-martials. And the ball is for military advertising and military recruiting. Henceforth, you have it in front of the post office with the ball on top. And inside the post office, you have the eagle on top because the post office is postal. Henceforth, you're in the postal building, but outside, you're where you sign up for the draft. Everyone you turn 18, you've got to sign up for the draft. You've got, 90 days after your 18th birthday to do so. The 3 by 5 flag is a military flag with a blue square field. It's used for parades. The reason that they have this flag, not the 1 to 1.9 flag, is because of the weight of the flag would hang down, whereas in a marching at 3 miles an hour, the wind would catch it and it would be aloft because of its weight. The 1 to 1.9 flag I now hold copyrights to as the correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar flag, recognized worldwide, both in black and white and in color, red, white, and blue. The 3 by 5 base flag has a 3 by 4 field, and this is for military bases. The ones they sell at Walmart are 3 by 5 with a blue square field. That is a military flag. And when the sentence runs like this, when they come looking for your jurisdiction, what flag are you flying? And if you've got a military base flag outside your door, don't be surprised if the military can go ahead and set up camp in yours, because you've given it military jurisdiction to start with. When you have my flag on my business card, and of all things, I forgot my business cards today. I've only got, I think, 5 of them here with me. 5 or 6 of them. I got a couple here. I think I got 6 of them. I got about 50 of them back at the house. So, what we're going to do is... raffle. Huh? No, we're not raffle. Now, these cards, I'm sorry I forgot them. My business cards are like get-out-of-jail-free cards. You put these on your driver's licenses and you get pulled over by the cops. They take one look at it. On the back of the cards is the procedures to prosecute judges and attorneys and police officers. They take one look at that and they start reading it and going like, oh, he belongs to that group. This group is not allowed in the courthouse. They won't give you a citation. Thursday last week, I blew a stop sign on the phone with no seatbelt. The police officer was right there sitting. I blew right past him. He comes pulling up behind me and he goes like, Dave, he says, you know me? He says, yeah, I've been in your house about 4 times. He says, I know, you live right across the street over here. He says, were you on a cell phone? I says, no, I was singing to the music. He says, I see you got your seatbelt on. He says, but you blew a stop sign right in front of me. I says, well, actually I had my hand up and I had a cramp in my neck. I says, and I was massaging it, so I was pushing on it and I had my head tipped a little. And that's why I probably didn't see the stop sign. As simple as that. He says, well, pay attention. Here's your license back. And he goes and he says, federal judge. He says, yeah. He goes, yeah, I know you're a federal judge. I already pulled your file because I've been to your house several times. He says, pay attention.
When you use that and you show it to a regular cop, will he know?
Huh?
I've never heard of it yet.
I'll give the cameraman here, so he's got to have references. Huh? Here, pass it back to him. We'll have to get some more.
I have my attached my license, and I get accidentally driving 42 in a
30 zone, 12 over. Oh, 25 school zone, yeah. That's public safety violation.
Yeah, so he looked at it and I said, are you sure you want to do this? After he brought the ticket back, he ordered me out of the car now. He yelled at me. And I said, wait, am I under arrest? And he said, no. I said, am I free to go? He said, yes. I took the ticket and left.
See, now, if you would leave your vessel, you're a captain of your vessel.
Right.
If you leave your vessel and stand on the street, then you're a vagrant.
I was not going to get out.
And therefore, you were under arrest.
I was not about to get out of my car.
One of my students called me up the other night, and he says, I got a ticket, Dave. Can you make it go away? I'm going, how much was it? 87 and 55. That's 32 over. That's public safety violation. He says, all the cars were driving that fast in L.A. on the expressway. And I says, he singled me out. It's still public safety. You blow a tire at 87 miles an hour, and you're going to be so much scrap metal rolling down the highway, taking everybody else out with you. I says, no, I ain't going to stand by that.
I just said, I'll see 150 go.
Yeah, when it comes to school zones, you won't get... School zone is public safety. You got to watch out for children because they don't pay attention. They run across streets. You tag a kid, I'll tell you what, they're going to throw away the key on you, especially if you're going fast like that. So, but this one here, I'm going to give you guys a history lesson in a minute. This one here is won the 2.25 flag. I went to Washington, D.C., and I had one of the 1934 gold certificates from China. This was on original clay paper with butterfly ink. And it was an original copy of a $500 million note. My surrender commission is $50 million for surrendering a document. Secret Service showed up and wanted to arrest me for passing fraudulent documents. I had 6 inches of credentials out of New York State Bank to verify it. He says, where's the rest of it? He says, there's $8.7 billion on this package. I says, well, it's in Austin, Texas. I gave him the address. Well, they surrounded the property and they got the guy with the rest of the notes. He wound up with 8 years in prison. As a federal judge, though, being at the United States Treasury, I says, I want a receipt for that. I says, I'm turning over United States government property to the United States government to be put back into the Treasury. The 8 officers of the United States Treasury all came into the room to meet me and to review the note, along with the 2 Secret Service agents, and they wrote me out a receipt for the note. He says, if this is legitimate, we owe you $50 million. So, 10 days later, I called back and I asked for each one of the individuals. They no longer work there. The note disappeared. I think everybody took a commission, including both Secret Service agents, and they all retired elsewhere. But I never got paid. Then the guy says to me, where's your bodyguards? How can you transport this much money and not be captured? I says, you ever hear the word secrecy? It's the best fault in the world. So, I'm going to do a little history lesson for everyone, since how everyone has never... I go to universities, colleges, high schools, And you'll never see this in any of the schools taught. (1775), the United States of America goes to France and borrows 1.6 million francs to go ahead and fight the Revolutionary War against England. The war rages on for 7 years. In 1782, they now owe 2 million francs to the French. So the United States of America, 13 colonies, file bankruptcy, domestic, against because they can't pay it. They just come out of a war and they got no money. 1789, 17th of September. The United States of America cannot pay back the 3 million francs now. So England, Rothschild, goes ahead and buys the $3 million note, throwing in the United States into a 70-year international bankruptcy. Add 70 years to the Declaration, the Constitution of the United States of America was written, and the Congress would not sign it, so they put the Bill of Rights on top of it. They signed the Bill of Rights, but it was bonded, so therefore the Constitution of the United States was signed because of the bonding. The Declaration of Independence. D means no. Claire means speak. At is location. ION is contract. In means no. D means no. Pend means write. Ants means contract. You shall not write contract and you shall not speak contract. Benjamin Franklin. The is an adverb. You got a prepositional phrase of the, but they split it. The is an adverb making declaration a verb. Of is an adverb making independence a verb. Both false and misleading statements and fictitious conveyance of grammar. Henceforth, the Declaration of Independence is being sold at auction as a meaningless document written by a French attorney who was hired by the English Crown to capture the United States of America and the founder of the Continental Congress. Welcome to treason. At its first course, Benjamin Franklin. Since I brought this out in 1995, there's been eight major books published on Benjamin Franklin's treason as being bigger than Benedict Arnold, for those of you who know Benedict Arnold.
How should you write that?
Huh?
How should you write that?
Well, not declaration. S apostrophe. Seem to be creative. What's another word for improvement? Quality. Something like that. For the people's knowledge of the Constitution is with the claim of the correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar, with the rights and freedoms of the creative quality of our lives. Fill it in. Huh?
That's what I was thinking.
See, you throw me a question and I just cuff it off, how to be correct. I wrote the Constitution for the United Nations. I used the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of England, France, Fiji, Australia, and Hawaii. Took the best of all of it, quantumized it, and the Constitution of the United Nations. And I wrote a new 59-paragraph Constitution for the United Nations and was endorsed by all 200 countries. It was then customized for Ireland, which got them their new independence from England after 660 years of war with England. And it only took 72 hours for me to do that. So, if you got a question, I got an answer to an impossible question. And syntax will give you that information. 70 years. 1859, September 17th. Now, if we add no law becomes legal for 90 days from September 17th, plus 45-day trust law, you got the bombing of Fort Sumter in 1860. And the South breaks away from the North. Oh, yeah, there's also a 3-day rescission act. So you had to follow timelines. These timelines were set up 4700 BC, giving a rough estimate. So it's been 6,700 years running. And these timelines have never changed. The Civil War starts. Add 70 years, 1859, 1929, November 2nd. Was presidential election day, November 2nd. The United States of America says we are coming out of our international bankruptcy with you. It's called the Year of Jubilee, the forgiving of all debts. Now, England says, all right, you're going to end the bankruptcy. 5-day rule applies. We have to give a 5-day notice to all banks and credit unions that we are going to close the banks and credit unions on November 2nd. That was posted on October 29th. Anybody remember that date? Stock market crash threw us into the Great Depression. The dollar went from $1 to 10 cents in value globally. Same thing happened when Russia came out of bankruptcy with Rothschild. It went from $1 Russian to 10 cents Russian. So they had to cut down half the Black Forest in Russia for fuel, pull out all their gold, silver, oil, and timber. It took them 10 years to get everything up and running. When they turned off the money, they turned off the power, and everything ran on steam in 1989 when Russia came out of bankruptcy. And therefore, everything froze solid. It was the wintertime when they came out and broke all their turbines because it was all water operated, and everything froze and broke. So their whole infrastructure was destroyed. And Russia went dark for 10 years. Really had no power. Half the population on any given time was cutting trees for fuel in all the cities. And they wound up cutting down half the forest in Russia, which was a huge, huge oxygen producer here on planet Earth. And that's why our CO2 levels in 1960 stood at 998 parts per million. And at the top of the volcano at Mauna Loa, monitoring station in Hawaii 6 weeks ago. I was up there. It stood at 4,020. It has gone up from 1960 to 2010, 50 years, from 990 to 4,020. And then you wonder why I have global warming. Okay. So the bankruptcy was renewed on September 17th, was retroactive renewed to September 17th, 1929. Because you have to add 45-day trust law to September 17th, and you get November 2nd. You ever wonder why we have the first Tuesday in November, November 2nd? Because it's 45 days after the Constitution of the United States International Bankruptcy was signed on September 17th, 1789. Add another 70 years, and you get 1999, November 2nd. Just happens to fall on that date. The president on November 2nd, 1999. Those of you that are old enough and remember, we counted ballots, as no law becomes legal for 90 days. Because there was no law in the United States, the bankruptcy, the IRS does not exist for 90 days. The United States government does not exist for 90 days. The United States military, under the Universal Postal Union, was ordered at DEFCON 2 with their finger on the nuke button. We were at 1 minute to midnight for the end of the world. If anybody were to, if China or Russia launched an attack against the United States when we didn't exist, they were going to go to nuclear World War III. That's how close we were to the end of the world. So for 90 days, they had everyone count ballots. Watch the left hand while the right hand took care of business. And on November 2nd, February 2nd, 2000, Bush, with 47% of the vote, was the 45th consecutive left-handed president in the United States. No president has ever been right-handed in the United States since 1775.
What's the significance of that?
Left hand develops the right side of your brain, which is logic. The right-handed people use their left side of their brain, which is emotions. Anytime two of you were to get into an argument, no matter what you are saying to each other, and you are heightened emotionally, I can throw a math problem at you, like 3 times 3 times 3 equals 27. In a time it would take you to analyze the answer of that, you would take all your energy from your left brain, transfer it to your right brain. Your blood pressure would drop 60 points. Your emotional would become stabilized in 3 seconds. And you'll be using the logic side of your brain and stop fighting. So anytime you get upset, do a math problem, completely cancel your emotional upset. How's that for a fix it? Didn't know that about your human brain, did you? Yes.
Aren't the elections in the even years, though?
1999, November 2nd. President doesn't take office until the even year. They're elected on the odd year. It's 2012, yes, but the president doesn't take office until 2013. No, 1999, November 2nd, was the end of the third international bankruptcy. There was no election take place that year. I mean, the election took place, but the president wasn't appointed until the 2nd of February 2000. And Bush was reinstated. This was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton said on November 2nd he would be the last president of the United States of America. On the 2nd of February 2000, the United States of America Corporation took over. The democracy was dead. The Constitution expired.
So what's the law of the land now?
You're a postal employee. You carry postage stamps in your pocket.
So where does the UCC fall in?
UCC is copyrighted by England, has no effect on the United States. If you use copyrighted material from a foreign country on a foreign vessel in dry dock, you're babbling, because you don't have a copyright release. Only attorneys and lawyers and judges have a copyright release from England. That's why they joined the bar. If you're not a bar member, you can't practice in a foreign vessel in dry dock. So how do you capture a foreign vessel in dry dock? You don't. You create a court within a court. In other words, when you file a lawsuit with a stamp on it, it's a postage vessel. The postage vessel, when the sentence structure says, this is the document because it came to the dock, received the docket number, and is now a document. Document contract. 2 or more people make contract. There is 2 people, your claimant and a vassalete. Document contract, postal vessel. Postage stamp on a piece of paper is vessel. It's federal, so it's a federal court venue. The word jurisdiction, people, means opinion. Don't use the word jurisdiction. Why do you think you have a jury? A jury, J-U, means no law, and R-Y is contract. It's a no-law contract. The word judge sits on a plane different than yours. Even in tribal law, whether it be the witch doctor is the judge, the king of a tribe, anywhere on the planet, a president, a dictator, they all stand on a plane to break the continuance of evidence as an actor on a stage, talking babble in adverb-verb language. Therefore, you go into an auditorium, you see a person on a stage, they are under contract to perform, you buy a ticket, which is a contract of your opinion. Your opinion is on stages. Your stages, here's the plane of the stage, and then you have your seating going up. This breaks the continuance of evidence with the stage, and you are only witnesses or opinion entities watching actors on a stage. No different in the courtroom.
So the only way to engage and have your rights or whatever you're trying to do...
Engage means no contract, I-N-G.
To gauge when you go in there.
And that's a correct word. You do gauge a situation. Gauging means to analyze, to look at the knowledge of your environment. You're gauging the difference between right and wrong, good and evil. You're gauging the conduct of what the actors are, ACT, no contract people, because they write everything in the courtroom is in an illusion. And I'm going to put a courtroom up here in a minute and show you the tricks and the traps that are going to happen inside that.
So when I go to file a document, or a doc...
No, it's a document.
Okay. Do I put my stamp on that document?
Yes, and you sign it, making you the postmaster and
then they stamp
postmaster, banker, and judge authorized to transport the vessel from the street into the vessel in dry dock. You send before you walk into the courthouse to dock your vessel, you mail it registered mail to yourself. Your vessel has now been registered with the post office, which is controlled of the port authorities, which license the courthouse to dock its vessel on planet Earth. In the event that you are the postmaster now signing the stamp to carry the document into the courthouse, you are the letter carrier and postmaster authorized to transport the vessel to the clerk's office, and you can't be arrested as a letter carrier delivering the mail to the courthouse, even though it's a foreign vessel in dry dock, because you're already the post office, which controls the port authorities, which docks the vessel. So you have a higher authority. You're like the senior judge of the courthouse. Little secrets.
Did they still stamp that document?
Yes, and when they stamp it, they make contract. Absolutely. I sign every federal district court stamp. I sign over the top of it, capturing.
Ask for it back.
Absolutely. You sign all yours and say, they all have to be conformed. Give me that back. I'm going to sign my name over your stamp, and you sign your name too, clerk.
And you usually have to have 5 copies. So do I send 5 copies?
Actually, 7. They get 2. You keep the rest, 5 back.
Okay, so I mail 7 copies to myself?
No, just the one.
Just the one.
Just to get the serial number. That's all you want. It's a registered serial number.
Okay. But then how do I have a copy or...
You keep the registered serial number. You're going to mail it to yourself. You keep the envelope.
Okay. Got it.
Okay? If you have one copy that's sealed inside there, it's always sealed inside there. If it ever comes to
I'm
a...
not jumping the gun, but are you going to just go through all of these?
Yes, I'm going to go through all the procedures on it. Yes.
She told me that she can't let me have the document back once she stamped it.
All of them are stamped, and if you sign the others in front of her, they all have to be conformed. If her copy is not conformed, then she has an illegal copy. She doesn't have an original. If you sign across their stamp, you have the original. She has to take possession of that.
But she said, I cannot give you this document once I've stamped it.
No, that's because they don't want you to be legal and become the chief judge of the courthouse so that you're in charge. You become the chief judge of the courthouse when you do that.
So if they don't give it back, how do you respond?
Well, I always get it back. I says, I'm the federal judge in this courthouse. I have my oath on file. You better give me that court back. This is under Title 15. Which one is that? That's Title 46, Section 9.
I just tell them I'm the judge?
946. Well, I have a 17-year running position. Everybody knows me already.
So how do I do that?
Oh, if you sign, as she hands you back the documents, you sign all of them. And if she knows what she's doing, she'll give you back their copies so they're all conformed.
Right. So
Because when you say to her,
and she doesn't give me hers, then she is
illegal.
illegal.
Right. You're saying, you know what? I have originals here signed. I says, now how are you going to explain to your boss that you don't have a signed original copy and you only have a half the position done? You didn't follow your duties.
And that's what I'm wondering is the enforcement.
Now, under Title 18, Section 641, folks, misappropriations. Title 18, 641, misappropriations. That means you took a paycheck and you didn't do your job. That's misappropriation for not doing your job. That's a 10-year, $10,000 fine, a $9,000 fine, and 12 years in prison under another title slide of the same. Comes under 946 instead of 941.
What was the title number?
Title 18, 641 through 665 is the misappropriations rules. You can pull it up on the internet and go through the whole thing. Yes.
So does that mean when we took for the mortgage fraud, the ones that we filed at the district court in South Bend, when we gave them the copies to file stamp them, we gave those to have them all file stamped and have the case number stamped on them.
Correct.
And then we took ours back and they kept theirs.
Correct.
So, was that correct, or
No, they have their 2 copies, you have your 5. But in front of them, you sign or autograph your name across their stamp. And when you autograph your name across their stamp, they have to give you back those 2 to autograph also. Otherwise, they're not in conformity. And that makes you in contract with that building, with that vessel being docked. And when she gives you a receipt for your money filing, you also sign that receipt. You sign your name across the registered mail sticker. You sign your name across the money sticker that's put on your registered mail. You sign your name across the stamp. Anything the post office gives you, you sign your name autograph your name across it. Not sign, but autograph across that stamp. And if it ever comes to push and shove where you got to walk into court going, I'm a federal judge, I'm federal postmaster, I've signed my documents. I have the physical evidence in my possession that goes with this. This was docked at the post office before it was ported with the port authorities. The post office has jurisdiction over the port authorities. And so therefore you haven't filed protocols. In my lawsuits that I file with you as your mortgages, identify the clerk of the court on the 48th day as the federal judge of that lawsuit, because she's required or he's required, the clerk of the court is required to autograph her name or his name on that stamp as the postmaster receiving a vessel in dry dock. That's protocol. If they skip over that procedure, they're guilty of misappropriations. And you can go to jail for 12 years. And you can have when you download the laws on this, you take it in with them under misappropriations, and you present that to them saying, here, read this. See what this says? Now do exactly as I tell you. If you got a problem, you get your supervisor. You got a problem with that, you get the chief judge. You got a problem with that, call John Roberts at the United States Supreme Court. You got a federal judge here, chief federal judge can call the United States Supreme Court John Roberts. You can call Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State. Now he's Bill's counsel. So I'm killing flies in windows, glass windows with 20-pound sledgehammers, and I'm not breaking the glass. And so they come to me and they're going like, we're not going to obey this. We're not going to do this. I'm going like, you want to go to jail for 12 years? Feel lucky today? And he says, I'm the last man you want to go ahead and play games with.
Right, but you can do it. But
Why? If you follow the procedures, you can do it too. It's all about conviction. It's all about being cool and collective. Of course, I have an advantage of you guys because I don't have adrenal glands, so I don't have the jack high, jack low. Me, I'm just data. I'm a Spock. Since Star Trek came out, everyone's called me Data and Spock. Yes.
On your autograph, is it printed or is it in cursive?
No. Always print it. Print it. Yes. And when I did that in school, they cracked my knuckles and said, "You will not write that way. We're going to force you to be in fiction."
Cursive writing in school.
Say again.
They're taking cursive writing out of the public schools. Did you know that?
They're taking it out because of this program. Yes, I've been suing, and the teachers are going, "This is correct. We're wrong." And they're changing. This program is changing all languages on the planet. You can't move forward. You see, on January 6, 2012, there was a little glitch that took place. The Hubble telescope took a picture. And the picture showed 3 more of these spacecrafts in Greenland headed this way, which will be here on 12/21/2012. For those of you that watch TV, there's a new TV show with no electricity. You know why? Because when you put up here's Earth, and you put a quadrihedron with Earth in the middle, you've got line of sight, 4 spacecrafts the size of Lake Michigan. They have put a dampening field over the planet and shut down electricity. What do you think is going to happen in a world that runs on computers and electricity without electricity? They go back to 1880 overnight. How do you get the food to the populated areas? You don't. Huh? How do you farm your farmlands without tractors? How do you harvest your crops? How do you run your canning facilities? How does 8 billion people get food when there's no way to get it, move it from point A to point B outside of whatever you're capable of growing in your own garden or being able to can because you have a stove, a wood-burning stove that you can can with because you know the principles of canning. I do. I know the survival issues. I know how to make water out of thin air with nothing but a sheet of plastic. Dig a hole in the ground, put a sheet of plastic, pour dirt around it, and overnight it'll make a gallon of fresh dew water, which comes out of the ground 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, indefinitely. And you just run a little hose out, and you can pump it out of there all day long, fresh water, and have all the fresh water you need. As pure it can get, evaporating out of the earth from underwater, from the cistine. How to make fresh water, how to do food, how to do canning, how to live without electricity. I've been there. I know how to do it. I always tell people, if there's ever any kind of an emergency, the place you want to be is in my back door because I know how to stay alive. Well, what's nice is I got Lake Michigan only walking distance from my house, and that's a big lake. I got my own boat. Had my own boat building business for 8 years until the oil embargo took place in '73. Put 80% of all boat building companies out of business. Everybody copy that already?
So what's going to happen December 21st?
It'll be the first day of winter. And remember, if the world doesn't end on December 21st, make sure your 401k is paid up on December 22nd. Okay, we're going to go next to the courtroom.
I missed that. What was that about the 401k?
I said, if the world doesn't end on December 21st, 2012, make sure your 401k is paid up on December 22nd. All the calendars written in the history of mankind, going all the way back to the beginning of writing, all end on 12/21/2012. That's the end of the world of verb. That's what it means. And the day the world kicks into gear and goes to quantum. With 5 billion people studying out of 8 billion, that's all the computers on the planet. Obama wants to push this through. The Chinese are pushing it with 150 trade partners. I believe that there's going to be some kind of an announcement maybe on that day. That you're going to turn on the TV, get on the internet, and there's only going to be one thing you're going to see. My program, study. You got so many days before we're going to switch gears, and the world's going to change into quantum. Simple as that. So, that's just my opinion. What's that? Oh, by the way, if they put the dampening field up, batteries don't work, electricity doesn't work, solar doesn't work, wind doesn't work. The electron does not move.
Where's the dampening effect coming from?
Dampening field is an EM field. Just like an EM pulse will take out electrical circuitry, closed circuit information.
Okay.
The program on what a dampening field does, it stops electricity for electrons from moving. What would that?
Who would be executing that dampening field? What's that coming from?
The four UFO spaceships in a quadrahedron, which is a four-sided triangle with Earth in the middle of it, line of sight.
What's the source of them? Why are they doing that? Where's that coming from?
Well, they were here 50,000 years ago, so they created the last ice age. Now, the people that leave that spacecraft, like if you go from Greenland, Washington Monument, Yucatan Peninsula, and Easter Island, it's a straight line. They're on straight lines in nature. If you go from the Lexer Pyramid through Memphis, Tennessee Pyramid, it intersects as a straight line with the Lexer Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. A sphinx, a pyramid, an obelisk. A sphinx, a pyramid, an obelisk. A sphinx, a pyramid, an obelisk. If you have time, you got the Vatican. No. You got Egypt, the pyramids. This is North Pole, by the way. You've got the Vatican, Greece, at the Acropolis, where there's a obelisk. Obelisk at the Acropolis. Vatican Square. Vatican is a clock, a seasonal clock with a obelisk in the middle of it at St. Peter's. You go to Paris, which is the church built in 300 A.D. Paris was the center of the church, Catholic Church, in 300 A.D. From there, you go to the to London at the Masonic Temple, where they have the rose line and the obelisk, the glass pyramid. You go from there to Washington, D.C., where you have an obelisk, and you end up in Las Vegas, Nevada. Straight line, looking down from the North Pole. Then if you take planet Earth and here's our natural Earth axis. Here's the spacecraft in Greenland, 12/21/2012, direct line with the North Star. What are the odds of that happening on 12/21/2012?
What's their purpose for doing that on December 21st?
Well, this is a 50,000-year-old clock, and it goes off on 12/21. You put 3 more objects here, and you got line of sight, dampening field.
No, wasn't your question why the straight line, like all the...
There are no straight lines in nature. This is the timeline of Earth. From the 4700 BC to Las Vegas, Nevada, and the building of the Lexer Hotel with a 2 million candle light, 2 million candle power. The Lexer Hotel is a radio transmitter. It's especially designed, and it went off with all the pyramids on planet Earth simultaneously. When they turned it on, they all set up a harmonic resonance that sent a radio signal out into space 1,000 times more powerful than they thought would happen when they turned the one on. It activated all the pyramids that were built to resonate at frequency within the triangle of what it is. The pyramid in Giza is built like this, which is a diamond. The pyramid on the Yucatan Peninsula is built, this line and this line are identical to the square inch. They're 1,200, or they're, from the Yucatan to Giza, I think that's about like 12,000 miles away. They're both identical. Architecturally designed the same. Math, liars figure, but math doesn't lie. Math doesn't lie. I can tell you a few other little nasty little things that are happening. Here's planet Earth. Here's North Korea. 2 years ago, they detonated two atomic bombs, right? Those that did their homework. Okay, these things went off. It was 5 days apart. 140 miles off of Chile. They had a 9.5, biggest earthquake recorded in the history of keeping earthquakes. What they did is they set up a shock wave with the first one, which traveled through the earth, hit this line here, and then went like this, and through the magma created a 9.5 in Chile. That was a bump. The second one popped it. Okay, when it popped the Chile one, that was on the Ring of Fire for the Pacific Ocean. The shock wave then comes back off of this thing as it's ricocheting back over, takes out Christchurch, South Island of New Zealand, then causes a volcano 18,000 feet under the water, bigger than Krakatoa, to explode, creating a 6-foot tsunami. That was all. Nobody died in that because it was 3 miles underwater. This is on the Ring of Fire. And then when the shock wave comes all the way back up and focuses, he hits the trench outside of Japan, creating a 9 on the Richter scale, creating the tsunami, which then took out 3 nukes on the coast, which are dumping 11,000 tons of plutonium radioactive water, 2 million times more potent than it takes to kill a person, into the Pacific Ocean now since the tsunami took place, to keep the cores from going China syndrome. They still haven't got that thing under control. It's still burning out of control. And they pump 11,000 tons of radioactive plutonium water on this thing every day. This isn't made public to the public. There's very little of this is public. Satellite photos in, I think it was April, showed that they're drilling a hole 27,000 feet deep. The first nuke put a crack in the earth. The second nuke was they were able to use the second atomic bomb to identify magma, shockwave through magma. They can target through a shape charge any country on the planet with a shape charge through magma. There's a no-fly zone over North Korea, so their Air Force is useless. But the magma, they can go anywhere on the planet through magma. This was an experiment in a country, Chile, which is totally... Okay, when Chile got hit, Chile was raised 15 feet as the Pacific plate slid underneath Chile. When the magma came back, it raised the Asian plate 15 feet, including the island of Japan was raised 15 feet as the Pacific plate flattened out and moved underneath. And Hawaii, which is dead center in the middle, dropped 1 foot. Hawaii has a 40,000 cubic mile magma pool underneath it, which created and Volcano National Park cracked a hole 1 mile across and created a 1,000-foot wide pool of lava that rose up 8,600 feet from the base through the mountain. It then blew out a vent 60 feet in diameter at 8 miles per hour, moving magma into the south end of the island, pouring it out into the ocean, creating what's called VOG, V-O-G, volcanic fog, which is silicosis, fibers into the air. It's really, really, really agitating to your lungs when you inhale this stuff. I was there 2 weeks ago and I got a lungful of it. I was sick for 3 days. I was only 20 minutes in the fog. I was driving along and I got some in my lungs and made me sick. Anyways, the island dropped 1 whole foot. And this is all recorded on oscilloscopes that measure magma shock waves. Huh?
All the Hawaiian Islands dropped?
Yeah, the entire middle of the plate dropped, but it cracked open the volcano. And the VOG got really bad after that. Okay, they're drilling the second hole now, and they got a hydrogen bomb going into it. This is 100 times bigger than the atomic bombs. They found that as a result, they found a fissure in the crust of the Earth in North Korea, and they're drilling a hole down in this fissure. They detonate a hydrogen bomb, and we have a new math problem that shows up. Here's the 43rd parallel, North Korea. 43rd parallel, San Francisco. 43rd parallel, London. If they do a shape charge, and then from the top, it looks like this. Here's the North Pole. Here's San Francisco, and here's London, and London, and here's North Korea with a K. 120-degree angles. Liars figure, but figures don't lie. And on the 43rd, as a shape charge, they can bounce the magma at 120-degree angles and hit the San Andreas. Guess what happens when you hit the San Andreas fault? You got Mount Rainier, which is 40 years past due from its standard 40-year or 38-year eruption. You got Hood, York, and Shasta, all in a straight line, right on the Pacific. You can take Seattle and Portland and write them off. No place to go. The cloud from the 4 volcanoes would be devastating. San Francisco, that would be, you could write that one off. A tsunami would take out Hawaii from San Francisco in a 9.5 or bigger. It would take out Honolulu, which is at sea level, like 1 foot above sea level. And the shape charge going through the magma would hit the gates in London and flood London, taking out the subway systems. And then that would create a tsunami which would hit New York City, which is 4 feet above sea level, and take out New York City, Manhattan Island. And if they miss and they hit Yellowstone, then you got a super volcano 40 miles by 60 miles going off, taking out 2/3 of the United States. All one big dust cloud. So, I did this presentation for 2 3-star generals and 1 2-star general for the Russian military. For the Chinese military 6 weeks ago. The one general got sick. They had to take him to the hospital as soon as I got done with this. Somebody knew something. Now there's a side effect, and that's the secondary shock wave. Secondary shock wave takes out Hong Kong with 100 million people. Huh? Yeah. It's also contract. What's the mindset?
Who is the mindset behind all this?
Well, I'm a guy that does a lot of big thinking. I deal in math, as you know. And when I start doing math, and I start drawing pictures, I start tracking all the history of mankind, the whole thing turns out to be a big math problem of straight lines all over the planet called ley lines. Turns out that E.T. going back 100,000 years, and all these ley lines where cities are built on this planet, the 8,500 years of masonry, the book that I own, and all the secrets in 8,500 years of masonry that are written down, and now syntax, and all the mathematical procedures are brought out through that syntax. All the truths that are hidden inside that book. And in knowing how to cipher all this stuff and bring out all the timelines and the facts, and the facts that I say are coming in the future versus the facts that are already been certified through the book in the last 8,500 years, if it's been true for 8,500 years, then why wouldn't it be true for the next 6 weeks? And a lot of this stuff came to me on emails in just glitches, like somebody working at the NASA center that runs the Hubble telescope sends me a picture of 3 spacecrafts coming this way, and then it's deleted a few seconds later. And then I run the math problems on it and all the rest of the information. You know, anybody remember when Obama took the podium the first day he went to the Joint Chiefs of Staff? He walked up and says, "I didn't make this mess. There's only one president at a time, and I'm not it yet." And walked away. And that was it. Everybody's expecting some great speech. Fact is, he got a bloody nose. He got told about all kinds of things that are not included in the presidential election. Of what they say and what's going to happen behind closed doors about what's happening with this math interface and how it's affecting the planet. What E.T. is doing and how it's affecting the planet. All the different terrorist threats and how it's affecting the planet. All the UFO sightings as well as the time travelers keeping order. Why we're still all here. Why this is allowed to move forward with no interference on a global basis. And when I'm talking a global basis, I mean 150 language translations from my website to be as big as it is, uncontrolled, and with the order that is being conducted from it has been very architecturally designed so it doesn't scare people. And those that need to know, need to know. Those who don't know have no power to make an influence on it. It's only the world leaders that are in a position of needing to know things that are going to be told what is correct. The people, as long as you got your 6-pack of beer, your 600-channel TV, and your Ruffles potato chips, you don't care where the tank parks as long as it doesn't bump the satellite dish. And that's mankind's reality. Question back there.
Have you heard that there was a planet between the Earth and...
Nah, that's somebody's tale. That doesn't exist. What's your...
So why would you take the time to share the information with us?
Got to start someplace. No matter where you go, there you are. And wherever you are, that's where you're supposed to be. Make no mistake about it. Everyone is exactly where you're supposed to be. There are things that are said here, things you hear here. You're all good people. Why shouldn't you know what's going on? You're not going to see it on CNN. You're not going to see it on the news. Liars figure, but geometry doesn't lie. And using magma, the Earth's liquid, internally as a target, as a weapon. Okay, let's say they don't do anything. But they make a phone call to the premier of China and make a premier to the London and to Rothschild. North Korea is a very poor country, 85% unemployment. And he says, we've got an atomic bomb here that we're going to detonate and take out Mount Rainier or the Shasta, York, Rainier supervolcano called Yellowstone. If we're not given a certain amount of money to support our country, if we're not given open trade and use it as a blackmail weapon. Now they can't stop it. It's in place. It's 25 miles. It's 5 miles underground. And all they got to do is push a button. And what happens if you take out if let's say the supervolcano goes out and 2/3 of the United States are under a cloud for 4 years, You got a black winter, no food, population after the end of 4 years is a few 100,000 people. Northern Hemisphere is completely devastated just because somebody pushed the button. Or the people from the future know who the button's going to be pushed, and those people are removed. There's always a point of control. There is a future. What kind of future is going to be is going to determine. It's relevant that mathematics become relevant because of ET, as well as Earth's own ability to communicate peacefully. So I go around and I teach seminars every few weeks, but these are recorded. Once this goes up on YouTube, there isn't going to be 40 people here watching. There's going to be 40 million people, 400 million people watching the same presentation on YouTube in a couple of weeks. And there's nothing like a math problem which can't be disputed, because if there's one thing everyone in this room does agree on, it's a math problem. And liars may figure, but figures don't lie. And there's no such thing as a straight line in nature. So therefore, somebody has engineered something that it's not supposed to be. And if you engineer something, then you better be pretty responsible for, if you screwed it up when you engineered it, you're going to be fingered at. If you engineer it and you do it correct, you're going to be honored for it. You see? So yeah, I'm being responsible. And yes, this will go up on YouTube. And it will be viewed. And how long did it take for Michael Jackson to know, for the world, for every single person who owns a computer on planet Earth to know that Michael Jackson died? 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Every single person on the planet that owned a TV, radio, newspaper, magazine, iPod, handheld cell phone was called and said the king of pop died. So don't think things can't happen in a moment, that the world can't wake up in a moment, that on November 5th, 2012, I'm in front of the U.S. Court of Federal Claims in Washington, D.C., about 12 hours before election time. And there's going to be newspapers as quantum grammar is put on trial in a Kansas case. And Monty Miller and Russell Gould and myself are all going to be there as 3 federal judges holding the United States Court of Federal Claims responsible for false and misleading information, failure to have an oath of office, and are going to hold the United States government accountable for the election the next day under false and misleading statements.
What is that date?
Huh?
What is that date?
November 5th. In 5 weeks. So the world watching this on CNN on Monday night could very easily walk into the polls Tuesday and write Director Party David Wynn Miller that they want correct grammar. I don't care what they say and what they think's going on. It ain't going on because it's in fiction. And the world's going to change from fiction to fact overnight. And by December 21st, the world of fiction will be made an announcement on the world in all languages that this stops today, that we fix it. No more wars. You can't bring an argument to another human being if you're going to talk in verb. Get your contracts right or go home. What's that?
What are they doing with the HARP program up in Alaska?
High Amplification Array Radiation Pulse. HARP is a alpha-beta transmitter. There are 12 units around the planet. They can reach down as far as the equator. They are used to control the frequency of your brain through radio wave influence. It's used to take you from an alpha, which is aggressive, to a beta wave, which is docile. It gets 98 degrees Fahrenheit in a populated city like Los Angeles, and people tend to get crazy at 98 degrees. So they change you change your mind to a beta wave and make you all nice and comfortable at 98 degrees, not irritated. Mob control, that's all it is. Now, if you want to talk about angels don't play this harp, of the satellite 38,000 miles out over the Pacific Ocean, which can't be seen by any earthbound station that controls a microwave to increase the temperature of the surface a half a degree and create weather patterns 3,800 miles across to move El Niños and weather patterns. That was started in 1988. It ran until 1997 when I had it shut off. But they fooled around with it long enough to almost cause a 9.9 earthquake on the San Andreas when they heated up the North American plate 22 degrees and the Pacific plate 25 degrees. I did a seminar in Sacramento and told them, you will turn the temperature down of the United States from 85 in Milwaukee to 25 below zero, and from 85 in Houston, Texas to below freezing. You will hold it there for 22 days. You would take the air, which is blowing from the west to the east over the Yucatan Peninsula, and move it at 50 miles an hour for 22 days from the east to the west, and push El Nino offshore. 24 hours later, the wind blew at 50 miles an hour from the east to the west, and the entire United States of America was put into a deep freeze. And it lasted for exactly 22 days where it was below freezing, bringing the North American plate down enough that it pulled the pressure off of the San Andreas. We didn't have an earthquake, and El Nino was pushed offshore. Remember when all the seals and the marine life were dying because the water was up in the high 70s? Went back down to 55 degrees where it's supposed to be. Because when you move hot water this way, cold water replaces it from the bottom, 3 miles down. Sometimes I got to interfere with the world to save the world, even though I'm not supposed to. Okay. Courtroom. Courtroom's divided into planes. Plans. ES. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. All right. Plane number one is the level playing field, such as this room. Plane number two is where the clerk of the court sits, on a 4-inch high podium above your plane. Plane number three is the witness box, or the jury box. Anything in a box is an enclosed area and cannot be considered. As you well know, since the Constitution of the United States was created, you must have a 12-man jury. What you don't know is that the jury box is built like this with chairs on the X's. So what do you have looking from the top? You have 2 petite juries of 6 people each, which is illegal. The continuance of evidence of the peanut gallery are divided. So the jury is in a box, and JU means no law, and RY is contract. They are a no-law contract of an illusion. Henceforth, they have no value whatsoever. Never ask for a jury trial because a jury doesn't have a clue how to read and write above a second-grade reading level. That's why it's a no-law contract. Then the witness gets put into a witness box, which is an enclosed area, cannot see evidence or give testimony, to a jury box, which cannot see evidence or see testimony, to a judge that's on a plane, not even in the courtroom, as an actor in black robes, mourning justice. And justice, JU, equals no law. S equals speak. TI equals title. And CE equals judge. This is Latin. Judge title speaks no law. And what's the first word you guys do in your anger? There is a location. That's a positive word. Is a positive word. No is a negative word. Law is a dangling participle verb. So what happens? There is plus and plus, now pointing towards no to be positive, making law a negative, because no is still a negative. So therefore the word no law or fact shall be tried in court. By your own confessions, people, you go, there is no. There's no such thing as a no. Because you can't perform a negative condition of performance. But if you say there is no, what do I have in my hand? Nothing. You just made nothing a fact. Now I can prosecute you with nothing. Well, you just walked right into that trap. Don't feel bad. No one's ever gotten past it. Everyone steps in the trap. Let's see how close of attention you are. What is your name? No. I'm a judge. I said, what is your name? I just called you a what? Would it be easier? Would it be easier if I did this? Would it be easier if I did that? Now, does that make sense? You see, this here is a period, folks. This isn't a question mark. That means, what is your name?
Do you see a question mark hanging above me?
Yeah. So, the answer to the question is, this is a pronoun, this is an adverb, this is an adverb, this is a verb. Even if you were to identify the word what to be your name, why am I calling you a verb? You don't exist as a dangling participle verb. The answer is, this is the answer to the question, what is your name? You identify syntax. You say, well, what is a pronoun? This is an adverb, yours is an adverb, and name is a verb. Can I see the correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar for the avoidance of the perjury? The judge is going to go, okay, case dismissed. Please leave the courtroom. Bang, just like that. Don't care what you're there for. Because the traffic citation, anything he's got to say to you is a lie. You can always tell I'm lying to you. My lips are moving. Hey, it's a fact, folks.
So anytime you go through a stop sign and you get a ticket, you could use that argument in court.
Well, actually, I won a case. I said, Mr. Police Officer, would you please come up? He goes, yes. He says, you testified that I went through the stop sign. I said, you just said I went through the stop sign. I says, what does the stop sign look like? So 8 sides, painted red and white, made of metal. How do I occupy the same space as a stop sign? How can I go through it? As two objects can't occupy the same space at the same time. This is a fraudulent statement. And this is a pronoun, adverb, verb, adverb, adjective, pronoun. Can I see the correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar for the avoidance of the perjury? Judge goes, you can't go through a stop sign. And yes, that is a correct statement. And yes, this is a fraudulent statement. And you committed fraud under Title 15, Section 1692E and Title 18, 1001. Fictitious conveyance of grammar and false and misleading statements. Case dismissed. Mr. Police Officer, you're going to be reprimanded. I want your supervisor in here, as you're going to have to learn how to use correct grammar. You see, these are all tricks and traps, little things that are hidden in plain view right in front of you. And all the little things that go on right in front of you that you don't even understand. Now, I'll show you another little trick that the Universal Postal Union burned Switzerland. Do you know that all wars on planet Earth are orchestrated by the post office? Post office controls all money in all 250 countries. World War II was not an exercise in a world war as per se. It was an exercise in population reduction of 200 million people, and that's all it was. The planet was not ready to support 8 billion people in 2012. If World War II didn't take place, we would have hit 8 billion people in probably 1970, where there wasn't technology or production capabilities of feeding, so people would have been dying globally in mass units. Millions of people would have been dying at a time from starvation rather than having a controlled issue. If the plague of 1525 or 1535, something like that, which wiped out half the population of the planet, didn't take place, we would have hit saturation way back in 1800. And then there would have been a mass destruction. When I was in, it was in high school. I think it was 11th grade. About 17 years old. We did an experiment. Took a 4-ounce potato, put it in a 2-gallon fruit jar with 2 fruit flies. In 30 days, we had 50,000 fruit flies and no potato. On the 31st day, we had no fruit flies and no potato. The point is, you can expand out of existence all at the same time. You can go out and go fishing, which, if anybody's ever done this, and you put like 30 bluegills in a 5-gallon pail. And in 1 minute, all 30 bluegills die of suffocation. At the same time, they're all gone. When the oxygen runs out, they all perish. Well, the same thing is true with the things that are happening on this planet about what orchestrates. So we're going to take you back into history, to Hawaii, which is a cause and effect. 1848, King Kamehameha makes a proclamation that if Hawaiians are dead or off the land for 20 years, the land is free for settlement. And being Hawaii is the center of the Pacific, it's very important. In 1800, the population of Hawaii was 2 million Hawaiians. In 1829, there was 34,000 Hawaiians left alive. In 34 years, they all died from whooping cough, tuberculosis, typhoid, smallpox, measles, mumps, chickenpox, all of our childhood diseases. As the Hawaiian Islands were isolated, Cook shows up in 1789, comes back in 1800 with Bishop, and because the world knows that Hawaii exists and they start sailing there, they bring all the diseases of Europe and the United States, and in 34 years, 99% of all Hawaiians are dead from genocide by germ warfare. And so the Hawaiian population is so small, based on its size, that there's King Kamehameha, in 1848, nationalizes the entire island under the Bishop's Trust, putting all the remaining choice lands into the Hawaiian Kingdom. Now, 1/3 of the Hawaiian Islands was given to the Philippines, 1/3 to China, 1/3 to Japan, because they were the dominant population at the time in the Hawaiian Islands. And in the Hawaiian Islands themselves, the Hawaiians kept all the choice farmlands. With that said, China declares Hawaii to be part of their country. Japan declares Hawaii to be part of theirs, and so do the Philippines. The United States took over in I'll get to that in a few minutes. The United States Postal Service shows the Universal Postal Union, better known as the UPU. If you want to go and study this, upu.com is what you type in your computer, Universal Postal Union, and you can get a history lesson off of Wikipedia, which will show you what's going on. Some of this stuff was never made public. I uncovered it, and quite by accident on the 6th of January, and was able to certify how World War II was conducted. In 22nd of October, 1871, the Hawaii files bankruptcy. Now, under the words of damage, no damage becomes legal, and under maritime law of commerce, which falls into the Maritime salvage claim, Title 46. Chapter 16, Section 781. That's your salvage. That's maritime salvage. All right, the Bern Switzerland shows up in Hawaii on this date and gets Hawaii, King Kamehameha V, to file bankruptcy. Under damages, no damages complained. So this is the 22nd of October, 1872, plus 45-day trust law and 3-day grace period is the 6th of December, 1872. Guess what happens on that date? King Kamehameha V, the last reigning monarch of the Hawaiian Islands, is assassinated by poison and dies. The Hawaiian Masons, because he is a 34-degree Mason, being that he is the reigning king and monarch, activates the 20-year moratorium that if you are dead or off the land, because he's responsible for all the land in Hawaii. Add 45 days to December 6th, and you get, plus the 3-day Rescissions Act, and you get the 17th of January, 1873, plus 20 years is 1893. January 17th, 1893, the United States military shows up. The commander of the warship is a postmaster, ordering the postmaster of Hawaiian Islands to take over the Iolani Palace and capture the Hawaiian Islands, putting the Hawaiian Islands into United States territory. Queen Iolani then writes a cursive letter, an adverb verb, to complain. But as the Queen of Hawaii in 1893, she's also a 34-degree Eastern Star. And when you join the Masons or Eastern Star, you surrender your king, queen, presidential, or director's position and are now work for the Masons as a postmaster. And guess what's right across the street from the Iolani Palace? Postmaster, Lodge number 1 for the Masons, the Post Office of Hawaiian Islands, Immigrations, Customs, and the Supreme Court of Hawaii, all in the same room. All the heads of government. So, I looked at this and I'm going like, all right, here we have 45-day trust law. 1-year damages was vacated. 45 trust law and 3-day grace period allows them to assassinate him. Plus 45 days and 3-day grace period allows them to take over, plus the 20-year moratorium, capture the Hawaiian Islands. All done by timetables. Now let's work backwards from this. As we know, that bankruptcy is a 70-year international condition, plus a 45-day trust law. If you add 45 years and 3-day lemon law, you get 7 December 1941, bombing of Pearl Harbor. The Japanese Post Office declared war on the United States Postal Service in Honolulu, Hawaii. It was a postmaster-to-postmaster war. Only post office vessels, which are all military planes and military ships, carried the mail between the United States and the Hawaiian Islands. The Hawaiian Islands was under military control from 1893 under the United States Postal Service, folks, not the United States government. The government is the post office. The President of the United States, pre-simulation denture, appoints a Postmaster General who controls all branches of government, CIA, FBI, police, fire, every branch of government, Homeland Security, Department of Interior, Department of Forestry. Everything on planet in the United States is controlled by the post office. The post office in all other countries is also controlled by, controls all branches of governments. The directors, the presidents, the kings, the queens are no more than puppets working for the postmaster. Because the postmaster controls the treasury, who prints the money, controls the military, and that's how the world runs. You want a new world order? It was established On the 22nd of October, on the 22nd of October, 1871 was a New World Order. It was set in motion by the Post Office. New World Order has been here for 140 years. So everyone talking about the New World Order to take over, it's been in place for 140 years until I showed up and there's a new sheriff on this planet, and he's taking care of it with syntax. And that's how it works. And the whole world has to change. Now, what is my position? My position is a teacher, as a plenipotentiary, which means I'm an ambassador judge working for the United Nations to teach planet Earth how to be correct mathematically. Who's in charge of the planet? Well, I'm in charge of grammar. I'm not here to arrest the politicians, the criminals, the bankers, the judges. I'm here to make sure that the infrastructure of this planet is mathematically certified to be correct. We have machines in place. We have buildings in place. We have computers in place. But the people who operate the machine, the people who think about the machine and how it is run, is corrupt in their thinking. So we're going to fix the contracts, and then with the new thinking in a correct mathematical procedure, people will not go to war. And if you want to go to war, you have to create a math problem, and an argument, a contract is mathematically certified to give you justification to do this. Otherwise, you're just babbling about your opinions, about what angers you, and it doesn't have, your opinion has no foundation in law, or in the law, or in the control of people. So, the people that created the nightmare know where the bodies are buried. Let's educate them, let's get them up to speed, declare amnesty, fix the wrongs, and get the world functioning on a correct format. And that's what it's all about. I'm not here to hurt anybody, just to educate everyone so we're on the same page of music. So when you look at a politician who stands up and he talks to you in quantum grammar, you understand what he's saying. He's not lying to you. And he can actually write a treaty, write a trust, write a contract, write a constitution, so that you absolutely know what it means, that 3 + 3 = 6. Not that we're going to play games that 2 + 2 = 4 with 100 different definitions. And it's only up to the subjective interpretation of an individual's ability to hoodwink you, or trick you, or make you think one thing and do something else to you.
Or pass it so we know what's in it.
Yeah. So you had a question?
Well, I was just going to say, to finish the bomb, the atomic bomb on World War
Oh,
Postmaster.
the world, the United States, was allowing Nazism to take place and would not get into World War II. So the Post Office allowed the President of the United States, Roosevelt, knew this timetable. He knew that the Japanese were going to bomb Pearl Harbor on December 7th. 1 minute after the international treaty, which was signed, but he was 90 minutes early. The people, the Japanese pilots who were in the planes, because the rising sun is their symbol, thought it would be poetic justice to hit on the rising sun. But they couldn't bomb until 8 o'clock and the sun came up at 6:30. So their enthusiasm got the better of them, and they forgot about the timetables. And they were supposed to wait until 8 o'clock to do this. But because of time zone changes, somebody screwed up by 90 minutes, and they bombed the Hawaiian post office 90 minutes before the bankruptcy expired. And they bombed a country under bankruptcy, throwing the United States into a rage and allowing World War II to start. Of course, the United States population rose up, was very angry, and everybody ran in and joined the military, and the war became what it became. So there was, sometimes things get screwed up because there's other things on the table that are affected years later. Population control. Now, how about World Trade Center? Everybody watched this on TV 100 times. Heard all the stories and all the rumors, but you never know what really happened. Because I'm a have a nuclear physicist background along with a heat treat specialist, coefficient of expansions, and metallurgy. We have a building that's 1,300 feet tall. Now let's throw an anvil that weighs 500 pounds off the top of the building. How long do you think it's going to take to hit the ground, hit the sidewalk? 12.8 seconds. 12.8 seconds. How long did it take for the World Trade Center to fall down? Anybody know that? 4.8 seconds. And that's compressing all that concrete and steel. What does that say? That says somebody changed gravity, didn't they? Even if the thing was burning out of control, floor by floor by floor, it'd probably take 2 weeks to melt down to the basement. But to accelerate gravity at 3 times its normal speed? Now, I put this presentation on national television in 11 states for an hour with the blessings from physics professors and demolition experts from mining all over the United States. When they saw the presentation privately, they then said, put this on national television because this is the rest of the story that people don't know about. Now, when you core detonate the World Trade Center with C4, now in 1988, I told you I wrote the mathematical procedures to prove that all steel is plastic. Okay, there's a little thing called an iron molecule. And being that I'm a metallurgist, here is a cube. In the center of a cube, below 1650 degrees, you have one nuclei. It's called an iron molecule. When you heat that above 1650 degrees, it becomes what's known as a face center cube molecule, and now you have 6 nuclei. Iron is the only substance in nature that can change its identity. Once it becomes a 6 face-centered cube nuclei, this is now plastic. Red steel. Cherry red steel. Just like plastic. Tie it in knots, beat it with a hammer, make swords out of it. Anything you want. Heat glass at 2200 degrees and it's liquid. Pour it in anything you want, cool it off, you got glass. Take plastic, at room temperature, tie it in knots, you got your plastic bottles, nice and flexible, doesn't break. Cool. Concrete. Pour that concrete block, it's liquid with lime, heated to 1780 degrees. As it cures, 22 minutes later, it turns into plastic. And the chemical reaction becomes epoxy resin. And then in a little less than probably 20 minutes, it turns from epoxy into concrete, and it goes into a center cube, making hard brick. So concrete, steel, and glass are all plastic. They all have a coefficient of expansion of 6.3. Anybody want to guess what the coefficient of your plastic soda water bottle is there? 6.3. That means that anything that's plastic will be affected by C4, plastic explosives. So you core detonate the building with C4 plastic, or thermite, which is a 6.3 also. When it detonates, it creates a bubble, 1,300 feet in diameter. When C4 detonates, it creates a shock wave of 85,000, roughly 85,000 pounds per square inch pressure. All of you that watched the video, this is a 400-foot wide building. The debris field is 850 feet wide above the building when it's still in a static position. Watch the video. The building is standing there, and you've got a debris field 550 feet beyond the 400-foot center line. So it's 850 feet in a half second. That's 1,600 feet per second. That's a good acceleration equal to a bullet, or equivalent to a C4 detonation. Every building within a half a mile of the World Trade Center had its windows exploded out at that exact second. And what's the one thing you saw in the air? Instantly, when the building was still, when this was going on, what was completely surrounding the building? Paper. Paper was airborne instantly all over the building. How did all that paper get 1,000 feet away from the building in 1 second. Where did it come from? Well, at the exact second of the core detonation of the World Trade Center, what you were looking at was not a concrete, steel, and glass building. What you were looking at was smoke. Not not molecules of concrete, steel, and glass, but atoms of concrete, steel, and glass. Paper is not affected by a 6.3 detonation. Only concrete, steel, and glass turn into smoke. And so you've got a static pile here of smoke. Now, has anyone ever seen the hydrogen bomb explosion on Discovery or National Geographic's pictures? And you see little balls. Those balls are called plasma. Plasma is the same thing that causes sunspots on the sun. When a C4 detonation takes place, you have plasma balls that are formed throughout the building. These are electromagnetic eddies that are created. Anything within a plasma ball will not be affected by the 6.3 coefficient of expansion of a C4 detonation, which only affects concrete, steel, and glass. So at this exact second, when this building is exposed to this, you have all these heavy chunks of steel in here, but they're also subject to the change in the gravity well. The gravity well collapses in 4.8 seconds, pulling the entire debris field right into a real nice pile in the basement. One thing that they didn't tell you was there was 8 buildings, 40 stories tall, that surround the World Trade Center that all fell down that were caught inside the electromagnetic bubble. They weren't on fire, but they all collapsed just the same with the World Trade Center because they were inside the electromagnetic pulse of the C4 detonation. So plastic affected plastic and pulled this whole thing down into a nice, neat pile. Now, if you look at the video, you'll see that here's Long Island, here's the World Trade Center, and here's a big white cloud of asbestos. The entire World Trade Center is insulated with asbestos. 50,000 people a day work in the World Trade Center. 50,000 people for 30 years exposed to asbestos insulation. Anybody want to guess at what the lawsuits would be worth over a 30-year period? In the trillions of dollars against the United States government. Who owns the World Trade Center? New York City Port Authorities. Who owns the New York City Port Authorities? United States Department of Transportation. Who is owned by the United States Postal Service? Who owns the Treasury? Who owns the Pentagon? Who owns the military? Jeez, it's all kind of coming back to roast on the Treasury, on the post office, isn't it? So now you've got this big cloud of asbestos, and 3 million New Yorkers are exposed to raw asbestos that's just been blasted away into real nice fine particles by 85,000 pound per square inch blast wave. Coefficient of expansion of asbestos is not 6.3. It's only blown into a free atmosphere, not into an atom format. So therefore, this here becomes a death trap for everyone exposed. Now, 50,000 people a day work, but only 3,850 people were in the building because everybody was told to stay home. Both planes, when you run the video back and you look at them, did not have windows. They were drones. Where did all the people go that supposedly left Boston? Never heard from again. Out into the Atlantic and ditched. And this was a controlled issue by drones. And we have drone technology. There's over 12,000 drones in Iraq right now. So these things, liars figure. But this little number here, figures don't lie. And being a heat treat specialist with a nuclear background can tell you that this was created by 186 men of special forces who deal with demolition. The basement of the World Trade Center was blasted out. What do you think's below the World Trade Center? Heavy rails called the subway system. They blew the basement floors out and dumped all the gold onto the subway rails, and they disappeared. Not to be found yet. Somewhere. That was the World Bank of the United States, controlled by the United States Postal Service. But the gold, that was only $3.4 billion. At the exact point of detonation, $12 trillion was transferred through Honolulu, Hawaii substation into Singapore Bank in Singapore, world's largest bank, which can accept a deposit. How much money does it cost to conduct a war in Afghanistan and Iraq? $500 billion a year. There's a 22-year supply of money to keep the war going in the Middle East and keep us in Asia. How much oil do they have left in the Middle East? 20 years. Keep the oil running for 20 years and the money to play for it. Cover up the asbestos under active war. Dress a bunch of guys up in rags and call them terrorists. Give us a Patriot bill. Take away our freedoms. Put us through all the nonsense at the airport. Even take away your clippers out of your luggage so you can't get on a plane, but they give you a steel knife and fork in first class. Now go figure that one. I kid you not, folks. I'm a 1,400 flight flyer. So, the plasma balls protect the steel and concrete, which are then analyzed to be 100% metallurgically correct. Except both buildings are missing 50,000 tons of matter, which floated away in the cloud as atoms of smoke on the wind. And everybody caught in the cloud is now dying of lung cancer. But because this is an act of war, they can't sue for medical help from the United States Social Security Service. And what did the United States do? They sued to give up your freedoms, to join the United States of America Corporation and go into a guise, GOISC, of protection and give up all your civil rights. Now, mandamus has been canceled because it's written in adverb verb. Your freedoms, as far as having a warrant to enter search warrants, have been nullified because the laws are written in adverb verb. They're using my technology to disqualify all the protections you had, and PRO means no of Tectus contract, all the no contracts you had. And they're only selectively choosing the ones that they want to use that benefit them in their ability to control. And Big Brother is watching. At every traffic intersection, you have a camera. Videos. How many people got tickets already from video cameras at stoplights? I got a few of them myself.
So who's Big Brother?
Who's Big Brother? DOT, Department of Transportation, working for the post office.
Is that where the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes in?
Under the post office.
Under the post office.
Yep, and you guys are all farmers, so you're under... In other words, to own a farm today, you have to have a 4-year college degree in horticulture. You have to understand pesticides, groundwater, public safety, pollution, gasoline, if your tractor's leaking, anything you put on the ground goes into the water table. Therefore, it affects public safety underwater. I used to own a 40-acre plot of land, and I bought it because I was going to harvest the topsoil, which was worth $7.5 million on my 40 acres, until I took a course at the DNR in Wisconsin and found out that this was the first line of defense to supply water to over 10,000 homes within 100 square miles of my land, as that was the headwaters of the Mud River. And I got an education as to how important my land was and that it could never be touched because it filtered water and created pure water in the underground water system. And I respected that because I'm a green person. So, now you know what happened here. This was a condition. Oklahoma was number 1. Waco was number 2. Waco was first, then Oklahoma, then this one. Just like World War II was allowed to take place, bombing of Pearl Harbor, you need a crime big enough so that people yell rape. This was a crime big enough to suspend your rights and make everybody a victim of terror. Question?
Hiroshima and Nagasaki, was that a control too?
What?
Population control in World War II?
For what?
For Hiroshima and Nagasaki when the A-bomb was dropped?
Okay. In World War II, all the bombs dropped in Pearl Harbor had $1 airmail stamps put on them just to make it legal to deliver the postage to the Postmaster General of Honolulu, Hawaii on December 7, 1941. In 1945, a $1 airmail stamp was placed on Little Boy and Fat Boy and delivered to Hiroshima and Nagasaki airmail just to make it legal. And I have the video at home that shows the Postmaster General of Honolulu, Hawaii on signing his name across the $1 postage stamp, just like I sign my name across the $1 postage stamp on my lawsuits, just to make it legal to deliver the mail. All the bombs that were unexploded, and I talked with one of the survivors in Honolulu, Hawaii, who had a 500-pound bomb dropped and split a tree in front of his house. And the bomb had a $1 postage stamp on it when I asked him about it. He goes like, yeah, it was a $1 Japanese postage stamp signed right on there. He says, thought it was kind of peculiar. He says the Army Corps of Engineering came out and defused the bomb, took it away. But it did have the $1 postage stamp on it, he said. And he was an eyewitness. So, yes?
What is the significance of the $1 versus, let's say...
There are no fractions in federal law. Everything is a whole number. That's your answer.
So you can't use a 2-cent stamp?
No, you must use a $1 stamp or above. It must always be a whole number. Now, that's a good question. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. When you read, now, you've been exposed to fiction grammar, but there's another thing that you don't see. It's called character spaces. All things went to computer now. No, wait, that's, yeah. My spacing is wrong. Okay, you're looking at a computer, and each one of these represent a character space, okay? Now there's a rule in syntax, it's called the double space rule. If you are two spaces between words, you break the continuance of evidence, okay? Now here you're going along, you got space, 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 1/10, full space. This is actually two spaces now. So when you say, I saw the cat, this is an adverb verb. But there's two spaces missing here. So therefore, this is just a two-word phrase, and this is a two-word phrase. It's not four words. So therefore, watch your spacing. We have an attorney in Petersburg, Alaska, who uses 4 words, single spaced, 3 words, double spaced in each sentence for 22 years. Last year, I caught him. We went back and looked at everything he wrote in 22 years, all identical. 4 and 3 on every sentence. Never wrote a legal contract in his entire life. And he was the prosecuting attorney and working for the city in Petersburg, Alaska, never lost a case. But then again, he never had a correct case, and so him and the judge were in and on together. Therefore, it's a conspiracy.
He knew what he was doing.
Exactly. There was no mistakes there. When I take your mortgage contracts and I identify all the parts of speech in 15 pages, and I show that there's not a single prepositional phrase, that this is a document with 5,000 syntax wrong words and 1,000 words that mean no contract, and therefore you have 6,000 mistakes and 5,000 words. This is like building a space shuttle to go to the moon. It's an engineering exercise on 64 million mortgages. When Lloyd's of London got a copy of this, they canceled 64 million title insurance policies in the United States. If I'm blowing smoke, then what's the world doing canceling the United States contracts across the board, shutting down the mortgage industry? And as Pandora, yes, I'm responsible personally for the entire collapse of the mortgage industry and why all of you are probably in foreclosure right now.
What does Bernanke's deal of the $40 billion per month?
$40 billion, that's nothing.
But is that tied to this mortgage, to the syntaxing thing?
No, he's just trying to put a Band-Aid on something, saying we're going to buy up all your bad paper. Now, for the mortgage people, and this goes with that. Here's how the plan works. We have a document that's a fraud. And this is an autograph, this is a confession. As you know, the bank did not sign any of your mortgages. So therefore, you have what's called a unilateral contract, meaning one signer, which means it's not a contract. You are classified as a borrower or a trustor, ending the word in OR, making you responsible for what? A contract that's written in adverb verb and says nothing. You are responsible to pay back money to a contract that doesn't exist. All the money listed on the document is in a parentheses. So if we have quotation marks, a parentheses, square brackets, or we write in italics. Kind of bad. Or if we write on an angle called italics, it means it's removed from the paper and it's blank, which is the condition of all your cases. All right, so we have this document here, and this document says that the bank wants this from you. But he never signed it. So can I prosecute this individual? Well, I don't have a victim yet. You guys have become victims, but only after the fact. Those that are all current in your mortgage payments, you still are sitting on bad paper, but nobody's taking responsibility for it. You've paid, kept your mouth shut, the bank's kept their mouth shut, and you just keep paying. Well, that's cool. Your credit rating reflects that you have made a promise to give something back to somebody else, and you've kept your promise. It's just like a handshake. There's no written contract. This is not a written contract either, until I stand up in front of the court. Now, when the bank stands up in front of the court and says, I wrote this, I'm taking responsibility, I want that house, I now have a signed confession in front of a judge that they took responsibility. Now, it's my responsibility under Title 42, 1986, as a federal judge, to syntax this document and find out what it really says. What it really says is that false and misleading information, fictitious conveyance of grammar, perjury, and deprivation of rights under coloring of the law was now a condition of criminal activity under Title 42, 1986. While engaged in criminal activity under Title 42, 1986, he had knowledge because there's 6,000 mistakes without any kind of modification. In other words, it's a perfect fraud. A perfect fraud because we're back into the no law or fact. And so now he's got this no law or fact document that he's confessed to. Well, from the first one that we did in January of 2008, which collapsed the entire mortgage industry and took the stock market from 14,000 down to 6 and back up again, and put everybody into your quandrum, why hasn't the bank foreclosed you after 90 days? Why didn't they just come out with the sheriff and kick you off the land? Well, that's because we still hadn't had the bankers stand up and say, I did this. So when he did that, he now had what he did was, on the 90th day, he filed a Title 46, Chapter 16, Section 781 salvage claim on your land. They killed the Indians, they stole the land, they sold it to an unsuspecting buyer back in 1800, and it hasn't been, or 1834, and hasn't been corrected to this date, and so the word is ailing, A-I-L-I-N-G. Comes from the word failing, with a square bracket around it. Better known as the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 12b-6. Now, every one of you that have ever worked with me, the first thing that the lawyer does is he failed to state a claim. Okay, what that says is pronoun, adverb, future time, verb, adverb, verb, which means you didn't use a verb in your document. You actually sued them with correct facts, using forensic evidence with a signed confession from the bank who stood up and said, I wrote this. Now, I have permission as a federal judge under Title 42, 1986 to prosecute this individual for false misleading information. So, all the people that have filed these lawsuits since January 2008, they're stonewalled. We want more information. We want interrogatories. We want affidavits. We want a smoking gun. We want. The point is, the word interrogatory, INT, means no contract. Affidavit, AFF, vowel two consonants, means no contract. We want no contract. We want you to participate in nonsense for 3.5 years of no contract to keep you into a verb fiction. Which means as long as you say nothing about nothing, you can't prosecute nothing with nothing. Which part of no don't you understand, the N or the O? Okay. Now that this fraud has been perpetrated, we go ahead and say, well, I have the signed confession here, and the bank won't settle, and the court won't settle. They're going like, well, the lawyers all, both sides, want more and more information. Well, and the U.S. Attorney's Office in California, they said, well, we've got to find out who wrote this. I says, well, first off, this is owned by a corporation. A corporation is a dead entity, just like this piece of paper is a dead entity, is a vessel in dry dock. Even though you have a president and a vice president, a director of a corporation, who is this individual? He is not a living, thinking entity. He is a corporate trustee. Trustees are created by paper documents. There is no living person to look at. You only have a machine run by a set of rules and regulations. That machine creates the trustee and tells the trustee what to do. But all the language is written in fiction. So what is the subjective interpretation of nothing? Well, at some point here, we have to come to a settlement. So how do we get these people how do we get the machine, the corporation, to sit down and confess to a U.S. Attorney's Office that, yeah, we're responsible, yeah, this was engineered as a lie, yeah, somebody's got to pay. Well, the fine is $25 million times 64 million homes. That's $400 trillion. That's pretty big check to write. The United States Treasury is $17 trillion in debt. The United States Treasury might be $17 trillion in debt, but the United States banking industry has stolen $700 trillion from the United States Treasury in the last 84 years. So what do they do with all that money? Where's it sitting? Well, it's sitting offshore. It's sitting in trusts. It's accumulating interest. And the bank owes the United States government $400 trillion. That's according to just for the mortgages. That's only for 64 million mortgages. That's not counting all the industry, corporations, licensing bureaus, Department of Transportation, and everything else. So this is a really big number, probably $1,000 trillion. Point is, we're only going to deal with the mortgages right now. So I said to the bank, I says, well, the U.S. Attorney though says we can't get past, we've been in court 3.5 years now and we can't move forward. They want more and more and more information. I says, all right, would you like me to settle this? The guy says, no one's been able to settle it. What are we going to do? I says, I'll fix it. So I made a deal with Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citibank. Brought all the boys in. Sat down and said, hey, you know, guys, you wrote this. I syntexed it. I have a signed confession in my hand. He says, well, we didn't sign it. There's no signature under. I says, yeah, but you stood up in court and you held it up and said, I want your house. When you did that, you confessed. And I've got all of your confessions. Because, after all, I have a lawsuit that says here you want their house for not paying the bill. So, therefore, you held this up and confessed to it. Now I have a signature signed in front of a judge. And now you're liable. We can't pay that. You'll bankrupt all the courts. All the banks will go bankrupt. Not true. Okay, in this hand here, you've got a $25 million check. Now, you're going to confess that you wrote this. You're going to pay $25 million to the Justice Department. The Justice Department is going to get $17.5 million of the penalty, and the whistleblower is going to get $7.5 million for every one of these confessions. Then the whistleblower is going to sign a contract. He's going to get $500,000 in cash. Well, that'll be negotiated anywhere from $500,000 to say $2.5 million, depending on what you need, how big your family is, what your liabilities are. That's negotiable. But the initial thing was $500,000. Okay. Now we've got $7 million left over. And you have to buy a $7 million CD at the bank that just screwed you, who paid a $25 million judgment to the government. What happens when you buy the $7 million CD? They get to fraction bank it at 10-1, making $70 million and selling it to MasterCard at 18% interest. And in 9 months, the $25 million is all paid back in interest to MasterCard. The bank goes, we're going to make excuse my French, a shit house of money. And the bank, 10 days later, walked into Kamala Harris's office and said, we got a check here for $26 billion. We'd like to settle this lawsuit. And all the homeowners get paid. March 6, 2012. 10 days after I met with the banks in Oceanside, California. Now that they had a remedy, the banks, Kamala Harris got $19 billion. The United States government immediately took $7 billion, stuck it into the Treasury in the state of California. Kamala Harris then had to hire a staff of individuals, screen out the applications, get all the forms worked, the paperwork done. I have those with me, by the way, for those that need the forms. They're involved with lawsuits with me right now. And the bank is waiting for their redeposit of the $70 million for every $25 million they paid out on. And this is I have all 50 federal attorney generals and 1,000 staff members, which are all assistant attorney generals, working with me on this. Now, they are hiring 3,000 more attorneys to work with the U.S. Attorney's Office to process 22 million foreclosures in the United States. When you divide 22 million by 4,000 attorneys, that's going to take a while, especially with all the paperwork involved. It's going to result in an $8 trillion a year windfall for a government that functions on $2 trillion a year and only collects $500 billion a year in revenue from the IRS, from taxes. So this is a 16-1 payback with my technology. Who am I? I am the cash cow of the United States Treasury. Why do they leave me alone? Why do they let me do what I do? is because the United States government would not exist after 1997 if it wasn't for me. I paid off the last national debt in 16 months. They were $8 trillion in debt. They not only paid it back, but on November 2nd, 1999, we had $6 trillion surplus in the United States Treasury, entering the third international bankruptcy. And so now, as of last week, we were $17 trillion in debt. With this technology, it's affecting everything. And every single lawsuit, yesterday, Bank of America wrote a check for $2.46 billion for false and misleading information on the wording for the contract for the Bank of America Employees Pension Fund. Biggest single settlement in the Bank of America in the United States pension history. But that is trivia compared to the 25 or the 26 billion that was written in California to settle the cases, and the 74 billion that has currently been paid out to date on the $400 billion lawsuit, which is at the New York Securities and Exchange Commission for false and misleading information to sell bad mortgages to the Securities and Exchange with a second-grade reading level. Henceforth, this document. But under the Clayton Act, they're going for 4 times damages of $1.6 trillion against the banks. This is just the first 1% of the 22 million cases that are out there. There's a 3% bottleneck in the United States court system. It will take 30 years to go through the 22 million foreclosures. That's why they've hired it. They want to bring this down to 10 years instead of 30 years. Question?
I'm just curious on the, you mentioned $7 million going to the CD.
You get the interest off it on a yearly basis besides your 5. Just like you win the lottery, you get the interest from the lottery for 20 years. The state keeps the initial chunk of money that you just won, $300 million, and you get the interest off it. It's more money than you can spend within reason against paying for all your toys that you would fantasize for any individual. And it keeps, really isn't any money around out there. Everything's got to be working. Interest is a working condition of money. So every time they have a problem, they come to me saying, here's the information, sort it out. And it takes me just a couple seconds because I've been doing this since 1997 when I issued new money in the United States.
So does that go on indefinitely, or is there a time frame that will stop?
There will always be a condition of foreclosure. There will always be people in bad luck. There will always be, the new contracts, however, have to be written in a new parse syntax grammar.
I'm referring to the 7 million CD that I get personally.
No, that'll be just a 10-year contract. That you'll have a one-time payout at the end of 10 years. That'll give them a time to, they may bill out MasterCard at, I think it's currently is 14.6%, giving you a 7% commission off of that. 7 times 7 is 49, so that's $500,000 a year for 10 years on top of that, and then a windfall of 7 at the end, which would be reasonable. The bank makes $70 million off the top of that at a 10-to-1 fraction, where they're only paying you paying you the face value of 7, but actually collecting on 63 million all the interest. See?
Give me time to gear up and get used to the cash flow before I get.
Yeah, I'm sure McDonald's will appreciate you. Yes.
Well, eventually, with that all being said, then these banks, they're not going to fight.
Right. In other words, the banks will say, "Oh, you finally caught me. Okay, yeah, I confess. No prison, and we're going to go ahead and negotiate this plan. You guys win. The federal government gets $17.5 million. They win. The IRS, now, everyone, you're entitled to your minimum wage, $8 an hour. You work 8,700 hours a year on your property to guard the home and the farm. At minimum wage, that's $87,400 a year for the husband and the wife. Anybody on title. Times the amount of years you've owned the property. And under the Clayton Act, it's 4 times that. Then your down payment on the property, if you refinanced, the value of the house you put up for the refinance is the down payment times 4. So it's not a $500,000 property. It was refinanced at 7. The $500,000 value that was refinanced now becomes 4 times at $2 million. So we're talking about a few extra bucks here. Okay, this is taxable income. This goes to, you have your caretaker fees, then you have 4 times your damages. Now the Rescissions Act stipulates under Title 15, Section 1636A, that you must give a 3-day notice that you're going to engage in a false and misleading mortgage contract with only one person signing. That didn't happen in all 22 million or 64 million foreclosures. And the Title 15, Section 1639A stipulates that if they didn't stop and correct the mistake within 3 years of the mortgage refinance, that they are liable to return all the interest to you since the first day. And under the rescissions, under the Clayton Act, you get 4 times the interest paid in. Those you can pull off your IRS forms that you filed with the taxes. These numbers are then calculated by you. Let's see here. And this is the form that the United States government created. Well, it's not the real form. This form was originally written in adverb verb. The form was because you are filing quantum lawsuits to get paid because you have forensic evidence of fraudulent grammar and fraud that's been perpetrated on you. This was also engineered as a fraud so the United States government could keep all of the money, because on the bottom here it says under Title 15, Section 1692E, if you use false and misleading information on this document, you now are vacating your position to collect. And Title 18, 1001, fictitious conveyance of grammar. So if you file a quantum in this hand but file a false claim on this hand, you vacate this claim and you don't get paid anything, and the government gets to keep the whole $25 million for themselves. So I syntaxed this and wrote a brand new form in quantum grammar using the correct parse syntax grammar and filled in all the spaces with the correct parse syntax grammar. Now, if I ask you a question, what is the address of your property? ADD, no rest, which means I just said, what is your no contract property? And you answer me. Therefore, you've stepped onto a landmine. If I ask you, what is the location? If I made the statement, for the location of the property is with the claim of the claimant. That's a correct statement. Now I gave you a location and I made you a claimant. Gold miners didn't file mortgages. They didn't file deeds of trust. They filed claims for their property. And gold was an authority. So therefore, I quantumized this and now time to match your quantumized lawsuit as a quantumized claim. United States Attorney's Office got this. We have a collection agency with Tyrone, Tyrone, Williams out of Arkansas. Now, the first 4 collection agencies that we had hired were threatened with concrete overthrows. They dropped out. Tyrone Williams was also approached with the same argument. So I intervened. I said to the U.S. Attorney's Office, this is quantum. You're going to get $17.5 million for every lawsuit I wrote. Based on 4 times damages, the average person is going to get $3 million. The government's going to take 1.5 for the IRS. Trustees are going to be paid. Anybody in bankruptcy right now, the bankruptcy trustee is going to be presented with this formula. The bankruptcy trustee is going to see that, one, you're going to get a windfall of $7 million, or whatever. In the case of bankruptcy, you will get a check to discharge all your debts, pay off everything. And whatever's left over will wind up being refinanced this way, plus whatever monies you need to be comfortable. This over here goes to the IRS. I don't know about the IRS liability of this. But if you add this to this, the average lawsuit I write is a $20 million windfall for the United States government. Now the judge says to me, we're going to dismiss this. This is gobbledygook. This makes no sense whatsoever. I said to the judge, I says, you know, Your Honor, I'm here in Honolulu, Hawaii, as judge in front of Judge Kern. They got 22 people here. I'm a claimant in all the lawsuits. I says, $25 million a pop, plus $3 million for the IRS. That's $28 million a pop. I says, I don't know what your pay grade is. I says, but you start costing the government $28 million for every person sitting here, times 22, that's $1.4 billion. You're not going to have a job very long. I recuse myself. Well, before I get kind of getting ahead there. After I said that to him, he says, who are you? How dare you talk to me like that? I held up my oath of office and says, I'm the Chief Federal Judge of the Hawaiian Islands, and I believe I have a warrant for your arrest over here. And right then and there, he recuses himself and he walks out of the courtroom. Well, in comes another judge, Kobayashi. I want appearances. So I gave my name, and first thing out of my mouth was, I says, I saw you standing in the door, so I heard you. I know you heard what what Judge Kern just heard. I says, and I looked at my list and I says, I believe I have a warrant for your arrest. And he ran out of the courtroom too. Then Judge Mulloway, she's the Chief Federal Judge of District Court in Hawaii. She comes walking in. I know you don't have an arrest warrant for me, she says. She says, because I was appointed by President Obama just last year. I says, oh, fair enough, you know. I'm still the Chief Federal Judge here, and you're a District Court Judge. I says, oh, by the way, I have your oath of office here. It's written in adverb verb, so therefore you're not a Chief Federal Judge. You're not any kind of a judge. You're just an actor in black robes. I don't care who you are. I don't care what person's name is in this courtroom. If David Miller's name is on there, I want you in this courtroom on April 12th, 2012. At 9 o'clock in the morning. So, all 22 of us showed up on April 12th, 9 o'clock, and I walked in the courthouse and got 6 marshals standing in front of me. Judge Miller, do you have your credentials? I says, yep, here's my oath of office, here's my warrants. Are you here to arrest our judges? I'm going, no, I'm just here to go to court. I've got a 9 o'clock appointment upstairs. This is, would you guys like to come with me? He says, well, yeah. He says, we're going to have to. He says, we have orders to accompany you when you enter the building for everyone's protection. He says, who are all these other people? I says, oh, they all were ordered to be here, along with all the attorneys and all the mortgage companies. He says, well, you're the only ones here. What's this all about? I says, I put a 15-month freeze on all the foreclosures in the Hawaiian Islands. And 5 of the 6 marshals were in foreclosure. They all shook my hand going, oh, thank you for not having us kicked out of our home. So they were all in my, I said, would you guys like to come upstairs with me? So we all tiptoed upstairs in Kern's office. We go walking in. And Judge, as soon as I walked in the door, Judge runs out of the courtroom because I got a warrant for his arrest. And I walk up to the clerk and says, well, we're here. Where's Mulloway? He ordered us to be here. And he says, oh, I'll go check. Runs in the back room. There's a whole bunch of screaming going on back there. The clerk comes out all red in the face, and he goes like, the judge has ordered the courthouse closed and ordered his courtroom closed, and everyone is ordered to vacate the building. I says, well, where's Judge Mulloway? You got to go down to the clerk's office and find out. I says, well, the judge just ordered the courthouse closed. So the 6 marshals and I, we go down to the clerk's office, and I have a order opening the court up, ordering with me. I was prepared for all this. I walk to the clerk, says, I'm ordering the courthouse open as Chief Federal Judge. He stamps it, signs it, and I sign it. I said, by the way, where is everybody? Well, the phone's over there, go call. So I called the Chief Judge's secretary, and she picks up. She says, all the judges in the courthouse are on a plane flying to San Francisco. Judge Kern is the only judge in the courthouse, and he ordered the courthouse closed, which is illegal. Can't shut down the federal government. So right then and there, I says, all the judges committed treason, vacated their posts, and left the country because they're in international space. So now we got a new complicated lawsuit that I'm putting together. So Every time I show up in Honolulu, it's World War III, you know. It's so these forms were critiqued so that they match your quantum lawsuits, so that you have. I've taken all the precautions necessary so that your language is correct. I took all the boxes off the paperwork, so there's no boxes. The only thing, when the judge, when somebody asks you a question, like, what is the location of your property? Well, you have to have all the words defined, which is in the lawsuit. You have to have your name and address to be legal as far as understanding what an ownership of location is. That's in the lawsuit. You have to have a cause and effect as to why you have ownership and why the bank doesn't. That's in the lawsuit. Because possession is 9 points of the law, and no one ever gave you a legitimate contract, and you've been the caretaker, trustee, and guardian of the property, which puts you on it, and there is no contract. And I mean the word "no" is an adverb, making contract to be a verb, which is an adverb fiction. So there is no paper in existence on planet Earth that says you do not own the property as being the original settler on the property. As the American Indians, even though we know the military moved them off, didn't have writing. They didn't have treaties. There has never been a correct parsec, syntax, grammar contract written for that object, and because you are the only person on it, under the maritime law of salvage, are the only people that have ever existed as original owners. Do you have a mortgage? The answer is no. Do you have a debt? The answer is no. Do you own the land? The answer is yes, because possession is 9 points until somebody can show you a correct parsec, syntax, grammar contract that says otherwise. So if the world of fiction wants to play the world of fiction, that's one thing. But when Iceland got a hold of this, Iceland forgave all the mortgages in Iceland back in March this year, rather than pay $25 million a pop to Wall Street. So everyone's title clear in Iceland now, even though it's a very small country. Yes?
Now, if you're a good old boy and you just bought a place and everything's current, how would you go about knowing the documents fraud? How would you go about? Would we have to get in contact with you? Or?
You can bring a lawsuit against the bank with the existing contract that you have right now and follow the procedures of suing for false and misleading information. Excuse me. On the contract and showing where the bank had Lodial, L-O-D-I-A-L, title to the property. If you're the only person standing and nobody has claim to it and you're on the property, under 1 year moratorium, technically you own the property. If you...
Are you saying we have to live there 1 year?
Yeah, you'd have to be there 1 year under 1 year damage claim. That no one's ever filed a damage claim against you for false and misleading information. Okay? Now, now there's a numbering. This is a numbering system. There's only 5 patterns of numbers in the entire world of fiction. And once you memorize these numbers, there's an old rule maybe most of you are familiar with, Sherlock Holmes. Everyone know the name? Okay. Sherlock Holmes says, when you remove all the things that cannot be possible, what are left, however irrelevant you believe them to be, are the facts. The point is, when we apply this same philosophy to the world of fiction, we actually come up with the facts. So, what is an adverb? An adverb is a modifier. It modifies the condition of the speed of thinking. It's primarily designed to modify the verb in speech. The verb is the word thinking, or the word motion. And motion comes from thinking. So the adverb is a modifier of speed. Now, when you modify something, you change it from its origin. Well, if it's not origin, it's perjury. Simple as that. If it is not the fact and you changed it, that's perjury. I don't care what language you speak. I don't care what country you come from. 8 billion people understand the word perjury. And so you've told a lie because you've created an opinion. This one here, motion, or rather the adjective, we're going to deal this with color. Anybody want to define color? Explain to Helen Keller, who was born blind, what the color blue is, or color red, or yellow. You can't explain color to a blind person. Turn off all the lights. You see, black is the absence of energy. There is no such thing as a negative. You can only have different degrees of energy in the universe. There is no such thing as a negative. So take this room, for instance. We've got thousands of candle powers of fluorescent light, and it's very bright in here. But let's go to midnight, turn all the lights off in here. It's so dark that you can't see the hand in front of your face. Or go into a cave underground. And I was in a cave. I have my little tiny LCD flashlight on my keychain. And they turned off the lights for about a minute, so everybody's eyes were fully dilated. And I turned that little light on, and for 300 feet down the cave, you could see everything clear with just that one little LCD light. Or you take a football stadium that holds 70,000 people at midnight, no moon, absolutely black, so you can't see the hand in front of your face, and just light one candle. An entire stadium will be illuminated that you can see by one candle, because you have black, which is just the absence of energy, but even the smallest spark of energy creates an illusion, will give you the reflected illusion that is necessary. So you can't prove a negativity. The adjective, ADJ, means no contract because the IVE is contract. And the adjective is going to, color is an opinion. And an adjective cannot exist unless it is followed by a fact, because the color has to be able to modify something. The word black pen, black is a fact. Pen is a fact. Black is an adjective. Is this a black pen, a carbon pen, an ebony pen, or a charcoal pen? All colors are black. I have a black jacket on, or it appears to be black, but actually when you put it against my black pants, it's actually a black blue. Just one hair off of black with a little bit of blue in it. So, but when I put the black against my shirt, it looks like a complete black and white combination. But when you put it against another shade of black, you're going like, well, there's some blue in this. Just a little bit, but it isn't black. So there's 1,200 shades of each shade of color. And there's an infinite amount of colors, so how do you argue color? Even an individual, the pigmentation of your eye and its ability to see color, and the amount of oxygen you have in your blood, or how many red cells or how many white cells, will affect the color of your blood that goes through your eye and affect the shade, where one person will see burgundy and the other person will see bright red. Another person will see green or brown. My friend Lyndall is colorblind. I says, can I have that red pen? She says, I'm colorblind. I can see a brown pen. Is that the one you want? So she could only see brown. And I thought to myself, wow, a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Bucavalias, for instance. Beautiful purple flowers. She only sees as gray and white. You know, she can't appreciate all the colors in the world. And I said, what a handicap, you know. So the adjective must always appear in front of a noun, but then, or a fact. But then when you put an adjective in front of a fact, it becomes a pronoun. Because this is modifying the fact, and now it's a no, no, no. PRO is no, NO is no, and UN is no. So pronoun has been modified into non-existence. The position is an alphabet, ABC. We're going to spell the pen using the alphabet. We're going to spell it P-E-N. We're going to give it a definition for the writing. Look, in any dictionary it says a pen is used for writing. It's used as a noun. However, I take a pen and I hold it like this. I now have a stabbing instrument. I stab somebody with it. It's carrying a concealed weapon. Carries a 10-year prison sentence for carrying a concealed weapon and 10 years for assault with a deadly weapon. Or I make a fist with it as a stabbing tool. It's your volition. If I hold it like this, it's a tool for writing. So the simple way you conduct yourself while holding a pen or a pencil can get you thrown in jail for 10 years. So be careful what kind of jokes you want to play when you're in the presence of law enforcement and what your attitude is. If the government wants your farm, they can charge you with carrying a concealed weapon and throw you into a quandrum of illusion, get you to sign off and turn over your farm to the government, which is a foreign vessel in dry dock, and all of a sudden you're sitting on the street going, what happened to me? I was writing a check for 1 minute, next thing I'm guilty of an assault with a deadly weapon in a bank with a ballpoint pen. What kind of nonsense is this? See how easy it is? My buddy, he's an electrician, gets pulled over. Cop sees a piece of copper, 1 inch in diameter, with tape wrapped around the end of it. So, I see you got a club in the car, carrying a concealed weapon. He goes, no. And he says, well, I'm going to charge you with carrying a concealed weapon because you have a club in your car. He says, I'm an electrician. I just got done wiring a 600 amp, 600 volt circuitry system. It runs a 1 inch wire. And that's the end that we put the tape around and connect our rope to it, and we pulled it through the line. When we got it on the end, we just chop it off, and I'm taking it to the junkyard to scrap it out. I'm going to charge you with carrying a concealed weapon, $2,500 fine. And he goes to court, and they sue him for $2,500. And he calls me up, and I intervene, and he gets his refund back, and they drop all charges. Just because I said, can I see the correct sentence structure, communication, parsing, syntax, language for carrying a concealed weapon? Oh, doesn't exist. Well, then how can you charge somebody with something that doesn't exist? Give him his money back. By the way, it shut down Adams County for 3 months. That little sentence. Because the man who charged him $2,500, the real judge walks out of the courtroom. His brother-in-law is a plumber. He's in the hallway. And I followed the judge out. I'm just standing there, got my suit on, look like an attorney. And the judge goes to us, hey, put my robe on and go in there and take $2,500 off this guy. And put him in jail for 30 days. So the brother-in-law, being a plumber, puts on his robe and walks in there and says, I'm the judge, give me $2,500. You're 30 days in jail. And the sheriff arrests the guy and puts him in jail. I make a call down to the chief judge at Federal District Court in Madison, Wisconsin, and I explain just what happened. And they shut down the county. Half the people got fired that worked in the county when they found out nobody had an oath of office. None of the judges, none of the clerks, none of the police officers. I mean, it was a complete rout. Don't think because they're public officials that they're legal. There's a movie that just came out a couple of years ago at Denzel, Washington, where he's a drug dealer. When he blew the whistle back in the 60s, 60% of all the police officers in New York City and Manhattan Island were arrested as co-conspirators for drug dealing. 60%. Huh? No, Serpico is a different one. A lot of people went down on that one also. But this is where a drug dealer turned state's evidence under the False Claims Act. And Compton is the second largest county in the United States, next to Los Angeles County, was taken over by the Crips and the Bloods. When the FBI went in there and broke that up, 60% of all the people that worked in government, from judges, attorneys, police officers, clerks, all went to prison. And Compton was under the jurisdiction of Los Angeles County for 8 years before they were able to reform a government. Don't think it can't happen. Yes?
So what can we do when we have a county sheriff that has the oath that they've been using for years, the one that is on file currently is completely void of any
send it to me in an email. I'll syntax it and send it back to you. In Hawaii, we have 92 judges. We syntax all 92 oaths. When the Hawaiian kapunas walk into court, they hold up the oath and say, you have false and misleading information. You're not a judge. We have the clerk's false misleading information. And then what they do next is they prick their finger and put blood on whatever document was brought them into court, saying it's called koko. Hawaiian word for blood is koko. Well, the paper is fraud. The language is fraud. The blood is human. Therefore, it's real. How does fraud and fact come together? Can't. Vacates the contract. Therefore, they don't have authorization. They don't have an oath. And the cases are vacated and the Hawaiians go home. That easy.
So can we do that in court here?
You can try it. You're not in a sovereign position like the Hawaiian people are, because you are a postal employee, but you did walk into a foreign vessel in dry dock under false pretenses. So it's easier to take the paperwork that's generated by the state in fraud. If it exceeds $21, now becomes a federal crime under false and misleading information. A lot of times, like in March, I was in Honolulu and I sat in on Kern's court. There were 13 felony cases brought in facing $5,000 to $10,000 fines and 2 to 10 years in prison. Judge says, so your lucky day, ladies and gentlemen, as each one of the people were brought in. They all got $20 court costs in case were vacated in front of me. Nobody knew what happened, but the judge and I did. Number 13 came in, fifth drunk, 44-year-old man, 5 times drunk driver. He blew a 3.4. Legally, he should be dead. Caused a car accident for 2 people in a hospital. That's public safety violation. That I won't deal with public safety. First off, judge says, "Well, it's your lucky day, sir. We're only going to charge you how much? $2,000 today instead of 10, because it's your 5th offense. And instead of 10 years in jail, we're going to give you 3 years in jail. Is that okay with you, sir?" He goes, "Oh, thank you, Judge. Why are you being so generous?" He says, "Well, it's just your lucky day today." DA goes, "I object." Judge said, "Objection noted." Write it up. He writes it up. DA takes it up, paperwork up to him. "Here, sign it." Judge says, "I ain't signing that." So I held up my hand and I did this, and the judge says, "Okay, I'll sign it." And he took him away. But I wasn't in the court. I says, "But I wasn't in the court."
David,
Yes.
I have an oath of office here from a police officer. Could you just look at that real quick and see what you would say on that for syntax?
I'll even put it up here on the board. It'll be a good lesson for everyone here. Meantime, you can ask me a few questions. How's that sound?
I got a question. What Paul was referring to on the oath of office for that sheriff,
Yeah?
the oath of office like that is filed, but every line is completely blank, nothing written in. And that's a certified copy.
We're just going to use this as the person's name. Okay, if it's more than double spaces, what you have is a group of pronouns that are on the paper. There's no legal sentence called grammar. Now this is we're going to use these dashes to represent character spaces. Well, you going to buy your groceries today with what kind of money? Well, if you want to go, you go ahead and barter.
Who are the elite that control the post office?
Postmaster General of the United States.
Wouldn't it be better for you to run for Postmaster General than President?
I appoint the Postmaster General, who would be my business partner, Russell, who is also a Postmaster General already.
I was going to say, he already is, isn't he?
Yeah.
So how do we vote for you in town?
I'm a write-in vote under the director party.
Is that listed?
You got to write it in.
Yeah, right in director also.
Yep. Everybody's been given instructions on my website.
Is it possible to do that on an electronic voting machine?
Yep.
Do you have to be registered in order to go in and vote?
Yep. The Constitution of the United States no longer exists, so therefore it's irrelevant. State of Illinois is a verb. I'll just take that. All right. This is a I, comma, so this is a pronoun for. Having is a pronoun modified by the bin. Now we have 3 character spaces, which results in a 0 here as a dead continuance. And then you have a pronoun appointed. AP means no, point, and ED is in past time. So you have 3 violations on a word that should be used as a condition of state, now meaning nothing. 2 is a adverb in future time. The is an adverb. Office means no contract as a verb. This is an adjective. Now, the reason this becomes an adjective is because there's a 2-character space break between police officer and the word of. So this is a 1, 3, 4. And again, you have a break here in officer, office, OF meaning no, is a vowel and 2 consonant. Then in is an adverb. Rather, there's a double space here again. So in becomes a pronoun. The is an adverb making city to be a verb. Of is an adverb making wheat and to be an adjective of in, which is a pronoun. The is an adverb making county to be a verb. Of is an adverb making DuPage, an adjective of aforesaid. Now, aforesaid, af means no, and F-O-R-E also means no. So we have a double no here of the word said, which says nothing. Do is a pronoun modified by the adverb solemnly, which then modifies the verb swear. Or, in the word affirm, which means no contract, as a pronoun, comma. That I will, that is an adverb. That is a pronoun. I is an adverb. Will is an adverb. Support is a verb. The is an adverb. And then it was the Constitution of the U.S. So that would be a verb, the adjective, pronoun, adverb, adjective, pronoun, and united means no citizen. Where's my prepositional phrase, 5, 6, and 7? That's a $25 million fine and 30 years in prison. He's carrying a gun and a badge without authorization of an oath of office.
That's 12 officers I'd have to.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you've got. And when I do this, just like when the marshals surrounded me in Honolulu, I said, You know, guys, I got a signed confession of all you guys. You all are facing 25 years in prison as organized crime running the government.
Is the reason all these oaths are irrelevant or wrong because the corporation took over the United States government in that time?
They have to maintain a condition of zero. The word comes from the word alien, remember? Alien means corruption from the beginning. We killed the Indians, stole the land, sold it to an unsuspecting buyer. Simple as that. All right, because they were corrupt in the way they conducted themselves, took over this country, bastardized grammar for 8,500 years, they have to have one condition of contract. That contract must be in fiction at all times. You can never prosecute an individual for nothing. You can never prove nothing. You can do nothing wrong with nothing. So, which part of no don't you understand, the N or the O? And, you know, when you look at this, for you to go ahead and say, all right, anybody feel like a pronoun today? I. Where's your condition of contract? For the I? Why isn't there a name here? What it should say is for the person's first name and second name with the punctuated words. With the knowledge of a contract, not appointed. He has to sign a contract. I mean, why would he do the oath? He believes the oath is a contract, but here he's taken a position that he was appointed. Today it's mandatory that anybody that's a county sheriff has a 4-year college degree in criminology. 30, 40 years ago, it was anybody could say, okay, you're the sheriff, put on a uniform, put a badge on, carry a gun, hold up your hand, and that was it. Everybody heard of Judge Roy Bean, the hanging judge of New Mexico. He was played by, they made a movie of him, and he was a drunken outlaw with 7 guys in his gang. And one day he went to a bar and he found a law book in New Mexico. And he read it and he says, you know what? I'm going to get hung here pretty soon if I don't become a judge. And he made all of his outlaw buddies deputy sheriffs. And they went out and cleaned up New Mexico and hung all the rest of the crooks. And he says, well, as a judge, you know, I can steal their loot. I don't have to rob a bank. I can just find their loot under the laws of booty, B-O-O-T-Y, and I can keep it all. So I can let them steal it, catch them, keep the money, and hang them. He hung 88 men, never had an oath of office, never went to law school, and never a judge. He was only a presumption of a judge. Because nobody could read and write, there was nobody to challenge. But because he had his deputies and he had the law book there, and he knew a few tricks as a result of that, he became what he became. What constitutes the fact of a judge, or anybody that's an officer of the court? It's only your presumption. Don't forget, you've left Indiana, you've entered a foreign vessel in dry dock, and you speak babble. Everyone has a second-grade reading, an attorney or a lawyer. And just put a 1 on top of every the on the paper, and the letter A and the letter an. Now, if there's only one word that follows that word, the, and there's a comma, that word is going to be a verb, 2. If there are 2 words that follow that word, it's going to be a 3 and a 4. Like here. 1, 3, 4, and there'll probably be a 4th word, which would then become a pronoun. If there's only 2 words, it'll be a 4, 1, 2. If there's 4 words, it'll be a 4, 1, 3, 4. And then they have another comma. Throughout the entire mortgage of your own property, if you look at it, you will see there are 3, 4, and 5 word combinations set off by commas to break the continuance of evidence. And then with the commas, you'll have spacing or numbers, parentheses, quotation marks, italicizing, or double spaces. And those are going to break the continuance of evidence, so they keep isolating these 4 little phrases to stay within this procedural argument. Now, the Internal Revenue Service says, under penalty of perjury, adverb, verb. So you got a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 scenario. The instructions from the notary No contract. We're going to give you a notice today. Which is not ice. We're going to give you a indictment written just like that. What does that say? Does that say indictment? Actually, what it says is adverb, adjective, pronoun. Adverb, adjective, adjective, pronoun. Adverb, adjective, pronoun. Because it's an underlined space, underlined space, underlined space. That's what it really says in syntax. It's called parse. Your vowels are used as adverbs. The consonants, if you look at all the letters in the alphabet, all 26 are nouns because they are the letter that identifies that section of the alphabet. Therefore, they are a fact. But when the fact is used, followed by put in front of another fact, it's an adjective pronoun. But if it's a letter and it's a single vowel, A, E, I, O, and U, it becomes an adverb. The adverb modifies the adjective, which modifies the pronoun. 1, 3, 4. 1, 3, 3, 4. Henceforth, you go back up here. 4, 1, 3, 4. Or 1, 3, 4. 1, 3, 4. The patterns are always used. They have never changed from the Constitution of 1775 to present day. The Magna Carta, when I syntaxed it, 1215, written in adverb verb, the foundation of the English Empire. In World War II, Nazi Germany sent 250 stormtroopers into London, into the Historical Archive Center to destroy the Magna Carta, thinking if we do that, London would lose all credibility on the planet. They were met with 350 British crack stormtroopers. 250 people died in the battle. The Nazis were captured. The Magna Carta was protected. And when I syntaxed it, it destroyed it and was sold at Christie's of London for $6.7 million. And London lost all their hold, including their constitution, on all countries worldwide. And therefore became a little island with no resources. Except the North Sea's oil drilling right now, and that's about it. So in London, for the last... Well, they were claiming all these assets, just like the Kennecott copper mine in Salt Lake City, Utah. Queen Elizabeth was reported to own that until I syntaxed the mortgage contract and showed it was fraudulently conveyed. How does a adverb verb statement say you own anything from a foreign land? That got kicked out. Deutsche Bank, Germany, been buying up all the stuff all over the United States. Syntax their mortgage contract. Now they're facing every contract they have in the United States with false and misleading information at a $25 million a pop fine. Collapsing the Germany's banking hold on the United States, claims and all their assets are being seized by the U.S. Department of Justice under the program I put down. Yes?
Going back to oaths, there's 3 specific Indiana State Police troopers that I've been trying to get oaths from, which I haven't gotten anything on paper yet. I asked them in person when they showed up at my house, which they totally ignored. Later, I sent by certified mail the oath request form with the code, the Indiana code that specifically pertains to that, and got nothing. I called Indianapolis, talked to the director or somebody at the state police headquarters, who told me on the phone that they never get anything on paper. They do an oral oath after the academy, and that's all that exists. Send the complaint to the Attorney General, who directed me to, I can't remember the name of the office,
Corporation Counsel are responsible to the police officers to protect them against any lawsuits of civilian.
Okay, they sent which generated a response from the state police again. And this time, that response, this is on paper this time, says when the officers graduate, they get their copy sent with the individual officer, and they do not retain. So now I got two different stories, and still nothing.
Secretary of State's responsible for holding all oaths of office, whether it be an attorney's office, judge's oath goes to the Secretary of State. If the population exceeds 500,000 people, they keep it in the house, like Indianapolis. Otherwise, every, I think South Bend is also, Gary's over 500,000 people, and so is South Bend in Indiana here. They would keep the judge's oaths in-house. Otherwise, all the smaller counties would be forwarded to Indianapolis Capitol with Secretary of State.
Secretary of State, that includes the state police?
Yes. Yeah. Anything that's smaller than 500,000 goes there. And your federal courts are set up in 500,000 population sectors within a state. Was the state of Indiana about 8, 9 million people? 6 million? Yeah, so you'd have 12 federal jurisdictions here in the state of Indiana as a result of that.
Thank you.
Like you look at Los Angeles, 40 million people, you got 80 federal courts in Los Angeles County alone. I mean, every couple of blocks you got a federal courthouse. And but Judge Pregeson, Dean Pregeson, is the chief federal judge for Los Angeles, and I had him fired for 2 years along with Douglas, his clerk. And his father, Dean Pregeson Sr., I haven't checked in the last few years, but I think he's still alive. He should be about 92 now. He is the senior master mason for the state of California and the senior federal district court judge for all the judges in California. And I'm the chief federal judge over all the district court judges in California. Because I'm the only judge in California that has a quantumized oath of office. Everybody else has got stuff that looks like this, an adverb verb. And yet the judge says to me, you know, Dave, he says, we know you're a judge, and we know we have your senior position. He says, but we got guns and clubs. What do you got? You got a ballpoint pen. Everybody knows a pen's mightier than a sword. I says, yeah, you know what? I says, you can lie all you want. He says, but 3 + 3 still equals 6. Now, how many of you have seen the movie Matrix? 1, 2, and 3? Okay. You know what happened in that movie? The movie Matrix is this program. It was written completely about this program. This program's been around since 1988. And Matrix is a story of Neo, who wakes up from the illusion, can see fiction, and goes after the machine. The machine wants to kill the humans because the human condition of thinking is flawed. But what kills both humans and machines? Viruses do. The machine can't fight the virus because the virus can multiply itself exponentially and get inside the workings of the machine. And so, and as well as the virus can infect or multiply itself and then go and kill humans in their dream state, because the illusion of a negativity virus exists as a danger. So Neo, as the fact, 3 + 3 = 6, says to the machine, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Susan Art of War. And the machine says, I have no remedy for Smith. So Neo says, well, I have a solution. If you promise not to hurt the humans in Zion, I will go ahead and take care of Smith. The machine says, all right, we got a contract. If you destroy Smith, then I'll leave you live. I'll call off all my drones, and anybody that wants to go free can go free. Henceforth, the architect. Now that little scene of the architect and Neil's ability to communicate with the architect, saying, we've been here 6 times before. And Neil says, choice. It's all about choice. Remember about who God is and what the devil is, what good and evil is, what choice is? Making decisions in life. understanding the fact in the fiction. So Neil says, well, I understand the fact. And when I can see the fact, and I know that in a dream I can do anything, I can be Superman in the dream. Says, okay, I can go out there and play the Superman routine. I can fight Smith. I can fight the machines. And I can win all the time. So finally it comes down to the confrontation where he makes a contract with the machine. And then the next thing, bang, he's right back in the Matrix with Smith. But Smith says, we've been here before. And Neil says, yeah, that's right. He says, if you know, and he says, I brought a few friends with me, which is the infinity of fiction. 3 plus 3 equals 6. How many ways can you do it wrong? 3 plus 3 equals 7. 3 plus 3 equals 8, equals 9, 10. Infinity. So the power of negativity in infinity can be wrong indefinitely, which is what our world's been for 8,500 years, and I'm Neil. And I says, no, king's got new clothes. 3 plus 3 equals 6. And the world says, you must be mad. You must be crazy if you're going to use correctness, a mathematical certification, to identify our illusion and disqualify the entire 8 billion population of this planet and wake them up. You must be crazy to do that. You realize the damage this is going to cause? I'm going, 3 plus 3 still equals 6. You can't live a lie forever. And this planet is humans are relatively young on this planet in their ability to reason things out. So, Neil says to Smith, hey, we got work to do here. Let's get to it. So they'd have the big battle scene. And Smith, which is the fiction, representing all the things that aren't supposed to be, against Neil, who just represents 3 plus 3 equals 6, which is correct. And bang, 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 bang. And he fights and fights and fights. And finally, Neil says, all right, you win. You defeated me. And Smith says, well, even if you did defeat me, you'd have to fight number 2 just as hard as number 1. And we have an infinity amount of fights for you to do to prove that 3 plus 3 equals 6. So Smith goes, wait a minute. I've seen this before. This is wrong. But I fought so hard to get this. And now we go back to Smith, the mortgage contract. Sometimes you have to learn through stories. Okay? We have a mortgage contract here, which is Smith, and I represent Neil. And the mortgage of fiction says, I'm going to conquer you. So what does Smith do? He absorbs, he touches Neil, and he turns him into Smith. He says, there, I've conquered you. 3 plus 3 equals 7. But 7 minus 3 equals 4, and 4 doesn't equal 3, so therefore, wrong. Boom. Smith number 1 blows up. Smith number 2 jumps in. I got a better answer. 3 plus 3 equals 8. But 8 minus 3 equals 5, and 5 and 3 don't add up. Boom, number 2. And at the speed of thought, the billions of Smiths that existed, infinity of wrong is destroyed. And like Sherlock Holmes says, when you remove all the things that can't be, what is left are the facts. And 3 equals 3. So therefore, Smith is destroyed in a microsecond of thought, and what is left are the facts. And when I syntax this, when you remove all the things that can't be, what is left are the facts. A blank sheet of paper. And who stands with lodial title at 9 points of the law of possession with no contract written in the correct parse syntax grammar to say you don't own your property? You get clear title. 900 homes in Chicago were then, on March of last year in 2011, June. It was June 2011. 900 homeowners were awarded $7.5 million each at an $8.5 million check written by Bank of America, given back their homes, and all expenses for moving in and out for 3 months were paid for by the Bank of America. It cost them $8.5 billion. And that's for only 900 houses. That was all over CNN, yes.
Brings me to a question that's been burning in my mind. Do you write I don't know what I want to call it, a document to secure the ownership of that home then, if everything else was fiction?
I have quantum mortgages, yes. And when I wrote I had my own real estate company for 26 years. All the homes that I bought and sold, I bought them in fiction, but I sold them in quantum. The people that bought them in quantum, they looked at the contracts and this gives me a headache to read it. I got to hire a lawyer. So they went to a lawyer. The lawyer took one look at it and said, if you don't want to buy this home, I'll buy it. This is a real contract. This actually gives me lodial title to this property. And he says, I know the court can't take this away from me. I know that a bank won't touch this. I can pay for this property and have lodial title to this land. And they can never move it off of me.
So what does that mean in terms of being taxed on the property?
Taxes still pay for the policemen, the firemen. It's called bailment, bailment. It's a bailment manager. You will be the trustee of your property. No one owns property in the United States. You are only trustees. In other words, the guardian of the land. The people, right now, you're the last person standing on the property. So the new information that you're going to get will identify you to be a factual trustee, but show me a second trustee who has a better contract that is timely than yours to be who you are at this point in time and now time. I write quantum trusts. I write the only quantum trusts in the United States. They have never been broken. They've been taken into federal court and challenged. The federal court throws them out, saying you can't bring those documents here. We're a fiction. These are factual documents. You don't have copyright infringement capabilities of entering into these trusts. The trusts are factual holding trusts. You can't do banking with a quantum trust. You can have a second trust if you want, or do something with an ordinary checking account. But a trust is no more than a holding position of a quantum mortgage, a quantum contract on your land to describe it. A quantum trust is a trust that identifies you to be a trustee, and you are instructed to do specific duties within the confinements of that trust as far as management goes. But you can never enter a world of fiction with a quantum trust, because fact and fiction can never meet. People who want to buy trusts from me, I will not sell them a trust if they don't know quantum language, for one thing. And if they think they're going to use it for something that's not legal, I'm not also going to give you a trust for that. You don't have any amount of money you can give me. I'm financially independent. I make all the money I need. I'm financially set for life. I can't be bought, sold, traded, or anything else. I've had lawyers walk up to me with a suitcase with $2 million and say, here, go on vacation. Stop bothering us. I'm going like, I day trade that. I said, I've lost that in a day. That don't mean anything to me. I don't have adrenaline, so I don't get emotional. Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is that I can't use this quantum trust to interact with the banking and the etc.
No.
Can I hold other objects other than my real estate property?
Let's say if you have any object that you wish that is paid for in cash that has no adhesive contract in fiction due to somebody else, you can create an identity of that contract and put it into the trust, like personal belongings in a household, for instance. You can put an automobile in there, a tractor, farm equipment. By the way, all of your automobiles titles are owned by the United States government. You are only trustees to operate the vehicles under public safety law. Public safety laws supersede all laws on planet Earth. You get the smallpox, you will be put into a plastic bubble, and there ain't no contract, and nobody's going to come to your rescue that's going to take you out of the bubble until you're healed or correct. You have a contagious disease, of anything that threatens public safety, you'll be put into a plastic bubble or incinerated accordingly. If you think a 747 coming here with 400 people on board has got a contagious disease, they're not going to hesitate to vaporize that plane in midair. It's never going to land in the country to expose it, because once it lands, it would get out of control, so they would vaporize it. Public safety has number one billing. 1.5 million people die every day of starvation. The world knows it. Can't do a thing about it at this point in time. Now, if they implement a Nikola Tesla coils, a 6-foot coil produces 200,000 watts of electricity, can be placed on top of every wood telephone pole in America, giving us about 100 times more electricity than this country is capable of using. 6-foot coil can be transported by semi, set up on top of 40-foot telephone poles, and hooked up with very little cost, has no moving parts, runs on a superconductor, which is 200 times more efficient than a copper wire, generates no heat, produces all the electricity we need. The surplus would be 1 cent per kilowatt. All surplus would be used for purification of water as well as purification of air. 24-hour-a-day sunlight. Globally, you guys could grow crops 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year-round, with 24-hour-a-day of plant light above your fields. The electricity can be used to create nitrogen, which would be your natural fertilizer through electrical circuitry, and stimulate your crop growth. Instead of waiting 9 months to harvest a corn crop, you could do it in 4 weeks. Well, we have the technology. It's just that the oil companies, the hydrocarbons, don't want this released at this point in time. However, if I'm president, this will be mainstream. I'll get up and I'll announce it to the world. I've already completely mapped out a complete program on the construction of the contracts, communication skills, making Nikola Tesla coils mandatory globally. Ships at sea could be powered by coils run on electricity. Oil would never have to be transported again. Oil is relevant because we can have tar for roads, but then concrete is safer because you don't have all the off poisons leaking out of the asphalt. Cars could be run on lithium fluoride batteries, which have a 400-mile cruise range for every car battery size technology. Now with the new discovery in Colombia of the new lithium pool, there's more than enough for the next 300 years for all the cars on the planet. And there will be more advanced technologies coming out. You can go with silver mercury with thoride, which is even 10 times more powerful than that. It's highly pollutionary because of the mercury, though. But there's other molecules that we can utilize. Yeah.
Will you need an ambassador to the Cayman Islands?
For what?
Well, I'm just volunteering.
What, you like the sunny weather? Hey, Indiana's great. I lived here for 20 years. Yes.
You were talking about the technology. I was listening to Russell Gould the other day. He was talking about if somebody has technology like that, to come to you guys, if you guys can help bring that out to mass market. So
yeah, we have people that have developed, like Bill Martz up in Canada. Miller is his name, Bill Miller, in Canada, Edmonton, Canada, developed a perpetual motion motor. And this goes back about 10 years ago. And I walked into his shop along with 20 of my other students from the seminar. He invited us over to his house, and he showed us this motor. The thing was 3 feet in diameter, had a 180-pound armature, 0 to 1,860 RPMs in 2 seconds. That's some serious torque. And then after it come up to speed, he disconnected it. It's hanging by nylon ropes in air with a dozen 100-watt light bulbs that he turns on and then accelerates the speed of it. And this thing's putting out 60% more electricity than it's generating. Because what he had done was the series of magnets, along with the coils, were set up in a harmonic frequency to follow the sine wave. You guys okay with this?
Yeah.
Okay. See, when you can syntax is the most powerful tool in the world, just so you know. Okay, use your standard sine wave. And if you're going to do harmonics, then you're going to go see, this here would be your 44,000 cycles per second. This is the electromagnetic pulse from the sun, based on the nuclear explosions from the sun. And we're showered at 44,000 cycles per second. And this one here would be 22,000. This hump here would then be 22,000, and this here would be 110,000. The point is that you take your sine wave and you step it down from your coils into 60 hertz. And then as you step down your cycles, you increase your amperage and bring it down into a usable voltage. So you have a primary, secondary, and a harness power, which you cut off in substations. The initial voltage would be running out at probably 25,000 on your big lines, which are your big, high, 100-foot tall power lines, and then also be subbed off into 660 volts, 440, 220, three-phase, down to single-phase, 110s for your houses, stuff like that. It's all basic electronics. I've been in electronics my whole life. I was building TVs when I was 18, my first laser at 12, and I even built my own perpetual motion motor at 16. So when Mark showed me his, I said, what you've done is you've hit 1,860 RPMs. You have a harmonic resonance within your electromagnetic fields. As your motor turns, you got your series of magnets, primary, offset by your secondary fields, which are then looping in that manner all the way through, going all the way back to the beginning. And then what you're doing is taking this electromagnetic pulse from the sun and you're matching it up to your power source here. These are permanent magnets and coils. And these were only ceramic magnets. If you go to rare earth magnets, which are 5 times more powerful, I've got one at home that's about the size of this little middle of the pen here, and it picks up 3 pounds. Just to give you an idea how powerful some of these little tiny magnets are in rare earth. And so he's using rare earth magnets set off by these these are superconductor coils. This isn't copper, it isn't silver, it isn't gold. These superconductor coils are what's called a eutectic metal that is 60 times more efficient than a gold winding. If silver is 60, if copper is a 60 on 100 factor, and silver is a 90 and gold is 100, then a superconductor would be 3,000. Generates no heat, and it's really efficient using this technology as the loop, matching this up and harnessing the 44,000 cycles per second. This is in a motor scenario. The other one in coil is just taking the coil, capturing it. So you take electricity flows at 95,000 miles per second. Speed of light is 180,000 miles per second, exactly twice that. Here's the Milky Way galaxy. We're out here. Here's the center. This is a black hole. So the further you get away from, this number changes. Right now we're at a constant where we're located in the Milky Way galaxy. This is all understanding astrophysics. But you take 95,000 miles per second divided by 44,000. So 44 goes in 2. So each Each winding of the coil has to be 2,000. This is in miles, and this is in frequency. So you got 22,000 miles has to be divided into whatever hertz you're going to be running. So this would be, if you're going to run a 60 hertz, which is above frequency, but you probably want to be in the 660 range hertz, divided in there. So you'd have about a 30-foot length of wire.